ICOMS 2021. The 7th ICOMS 2021. The 7th ICOMS 2021. The 7th
First of all, let's say thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has given us guidance, happiness, health, and mercy.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain amma ba'du. First of all, let's say thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has been giving us guidance, happiness, healthy, and mercy. Praise and salutation upon our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the last messenger, the best figure of this universe. Dear participants, welcome to the second day of ICOMS 2021, and on this nice occasion, let me deliver the agenda for International Conference of Management Science 2021 as follows. The first is opening, second is plenary session 2 that will be delivered by Professor Dr. Mohsin Sheikh from University of Pune, Shivaji University and Bharati Vidyapeeth University, and the moderator for our keynote speaker is Dr. Udin MM. The next agenda will be plenary session 3 that will be delivered by Dr. Edward Rubes from Thammasat Business School, Thailand. And for our moderator for keynote speaker is Mr. Punang Amaripuja, SAST, MIT. The next agenda is plenary session 4 that will be delivered by Mrs. Florina Silagi, MSc, PhD from Universitat Autonoma de Barcelona, Spain. The moderator for our keynote speaker is Mr. Taufik Akbar, SA, MBA. The next agenda will be parallel session 4, continued by parallel session 5, and then best paper announcement, and the last is closing. To take advantage of the time, let's start this agenda by reciting Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The next agenda is plenary session 1 that will be delivered by Professor Dr. Mohsin Sheikh from University of Pune, Shivaji University, and Bharati Vidyapeeth University. And the moderator for our keynote speaker is Dr. Udin MM. Please allow me to read the CV of Dr. Udin. Dr. Udin is the lecturer of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, and he finished his first bachelor degree at Faculty of English Education, Universitas Halu Oleo. Then he continued his master degree at Universitas Islam Sultan Agung in the field of Human Resource Management. And for his doctoral degree, he finished it at Universitas Diponegoro, still in the same field of Human Resource Management. Okay, right now I will try to connect with Mr. Udin. Hello, Dr. Udin. Hello, Dr. Udin. Can you hear my voice? You can hear my voice? Okay. Okay, Dr. Udin, how are you today? I'm fine, thank you, Dr. Udin. Okay, so yeah, Dr. Udin, are you ready for the plenary session today? Okay, Dr. Udin, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for Miss Faika as the Master of Ceremony in this special day. Uh, we have to move to the plenary session, but before we start, I have to say, or we all have to say thank to the God, because Allah has given us a nice chance to come here to attend this room. And the next is may Salah and Salam is delivered to the Prophet of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has guided us from the darkness to the light. And the Honorable Professor Rizal Liaya as the Dean of Economic and Business Faculty, the Honorable Assistant Professor Retno Widowati PhD as the Head of Management Department, and the Honorable Professor Mohsin Saik as the special keynote speaker in this event, and the Honorable all of the participants. May Allah give us health and Allah bless in our day. Okay, in this event, Professor Mohsin Saik will be deliver the very insightful topic, but before we start, I have to read about the profile of Professor Dr. Mohsin Saik. Dr. Mohsin is a MBA and PhD from University of Pune and Public Administration from University of Madras. He also passed his UGC examination for the award of Junior Research Fellows, and Dr. Saik was awarded 22 years of experience in teaching PG students at various management institutes under University of Pune, Shivaji University, and Bharati Vidyapeth Deemed University. And Professor Saik has authored books on industrial psychology, hobby, and business method. So I think Professor Saik is a very influential speaker in this event, and I hope all of the participants can get very valuable insight or knowledge from the speaker. Okay, let's start the presentation of Professor Dr. Mohsin Saik. Time is yours, Prof. Mohsin.
That the corporations across the world are becoming increasingly aware of the threat of environmental degradation and the growing importance of sustainable business practices. Hence, companies have realized the importance of adopting sustainable innovation practices in order to minimize negative social and environmental impacts that result from their activities and consequently achieve superior corporate performance. Now, the question is, how can for-profit organizations implement more environmentally friendly policies without sacrificing profitability? Now, first thing we need to understand is that when we talk about sustainability, sustainable development, sustainable business, it is all okay. But for a organization whose main objective is to make profit, how can we integrate sustainable business practices without having a negative impact on the profits? So here we need to understand that even if an organization comes up with sustainable business practices, it is not going to have any negative impact on the profitability of the organization. In fact, there are many research studies which have been conducted, which has proved that sustainable businesses are more profitable than other businesses. Now, we need to understand that how do we strategize sustainable business practices. Now, this sustainable business practices can be adopted through sustainable innovations. Now, sustainable innovation is the creation of something new that improves performance in the three dimensions of sustainable development, that is social, environmental, and economic. Such improvements are not limited to technological changes and may relate to changes in the processes, operational practices, business models, thinking, and business systems. Now, it is through sustainable innovations that an organization can adapt sustainable business practices. Now, these sustainable innovations are the creation of something new that improves the performance of the organization in the three dimensions. So we know the triple bottom line, the three important dimensions of sustainability are the social dimension, environmental dimension, and the economic dimensions. So the sustainable innovations are not just limited to technological changes. They may relate to changes in the processes. We may adopt more environmental friendly manufacturing processes or more environmental friendly supply chain management processes, then operational processes. Here we may come up with new operational processes. We may make use of new technologies, or we may make use of the existing technology, but we may increase the efficiency, reduce the fuel consumption, and improve the sustainability of the processes. So it may relate to changes in the processes. It may relate to the changes in the operational practices. It may relate in the changes in business models. Now, business model innovations, again, these business model innovations can be used as a tool for sustainable business, or that can be used as a strategy for sustainable business. And it can be the change in the thinking and business systems. We may change or modify our business systems so that our business becomes more sustainable. Now here, this is how organizations can integrate their sustainability into their day-to-day operations. This is what we call as the shared value opportunity. So by doing well, the organization makes money, but by doing good, it solves social and environmental problems. At the same time, it makes money. Now, why is sustainability so important? Now, in addition to driving social and environmental change, sustainable initiative can contribute to an organization's overall success. It seems counterintuitive that spending more money on sustainable business practices can boost a company's profitability. But studies show that most sustainable companies are also the most profitable. So why we should go for sustainability? Because here, if we want to survive in this today's competitive era, and if you want to see to it that we satisfy the customers, because customers are becoming more aware about the environmental impact of the organizations from where they purchase. So therefore, the long-term benefit of the company is in adopting sustainable businesses. Now, environmental, social, and governance metrics are often used to determine how ethical and sustainable an organization is. According to McKinsey, companies with high environmental, social, and governance ratings consistently outperform the market in both the medium and long term. While sustainability strategies might be an investment in the short term, they can lead to long-term profits. So the sustainable business practices or sustainability metrics, sustainable strategies, sustainable innovations, all these, they help the organization in long-term profitability. Those organizations which implement the sustainable strategies, sustainable innovations, they are going to leap the profits in the long run. Now, what are the different sustainable business strategies and innovations? The central idea is that by incorporating sustainability in their vision, firms can drive strategy focused on innovation and triple bottom line, that is social, economic, and environmental aspect. Now, innovation is an integral part of the firm strategy and increasingly recognized as a key driver of sustained business growth and competitive advantage. Now, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, innovation relates to both the development of new product, processes, and technologies, as well as their diffusion and application that in turn translates into improved firm performance. Now, we need to incorporate sustainability in our strategy so that whenever we are formulating the strategies of the organization, we keep in mind the impact of the strategies on the triple bottom line, that is the impact on the social, economic, and environmental aspects of the organization. Now, the ability to innovate is fundamental to respond to the increasing pressure, and it can be related to the incremental changes in product, services, and business models to radical innovations, both aiming at integrating sustainability into business practices, goals, and at a high level strategies. Now, through innovations, it might be the innovations that we call as incremental innovations, or it might be radical innovations. So the incremental innovations in product, services, or business models, or radical innovations, here both of them aim at integrating sustainability into the business practices and into the strategies. Now, global sustainable development challenges ranging from climate change, water and food crisis, to poverty, conflict, and inequity require innovative solutions. Now, if you want to achieve the sustainable development goals that has been put forward by the United Nations, or SDG 2030, now this includes climate change, water and food crisis, poverty, conflict, inequity. In order to achieve all these sustainable development goals, we require innovations. Through innovative solutions, we can achieve these sustainable development goals. Now, sustainability-oriented innovations have become imperative for firms to simultaneously address pressing sustainable development issue and achieve competitive advantage. Now, this sustainability-oriented innovations, or innovations that are related to sustainability or sustainable innovations, they have become the need of the hour in order to address the issues of sustainable development, issues related to environment, as well as in order to achieve competitive advantage. So we are able to achieve competitive advantage, and at the same time, we are able to address the challenges of sustainable development through the sustainable innovations. Now, proactive firms are increasingly focusing on developing sustainable products and services, as well as making their business operations more environmentally and social friendly to cater the growing needs of a wide range of stakeholders. Now, increasingly, firms are adopting Industry 4 and smart manufacturing technologies, as well as cutting-edge information and communication technologies like cloud computing and cognitive computing, radio frequency identification, that is RFID, cyber physical systems, digital sensors, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, 3D printing, machine learning, Internet of Things, robotics, and big data and analytics to achieve sustainable outcomes. Now, organizations which are very much proactive in this particular field, they are focusing on developing sustainable products and services, and they are focusing on making their business operations more environment and social friendly by adopting the Industry 4 technologies like smart manufacturing, 3D printing, machine learning, Internet of Things, robotics, big data. All these are being used by proactive firms to address the pressing needs of sustainable development, and at the same time achieving competitive advantage in the market. Now, we will discuss three important case studies as to how organizations are incorporating sustainability in their business, how they are coming up with innovative strategies, how they are coming up with innovative business models to address the concerns of sustainability. Now, the first example is of a telecom firm called Telenor. Now, Telenor, the leading Norwegian mobile operator, it started its operation in Pakistan in 2008, and it had a tie-up with the microfinance institution or microfinance bank Tamir. Now, with the support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the International Finance Corporation and the consultative group to assist the poor, they launched a new service called Easy Paisa, providing mobile-based financial services to the unbanked and underbanked. So this particular mobile company had a tie-up with the microfinance bank, and with the help of certain NGOs, they launched a new service, mobile service called Easy Paisa. Now, this provided the mobile-based financial services to the unbanked and the underbanked, thus increasing the financial inclusion. Now, by the end of 2019, Telenor Microfinance Bank, the recent Telenor's acquisition of Tamir, boasted the largest branchless banking service in Pakistan, growing its Easy Paisa mobile wallet user base to 6.4 million, its depositor base to 17 million, and the transaction volume through its agent network of about 1 trillion, that is approximately $6 billion. Now, this service has significantly advanced financial inclusion in Pakistan and established Telenor as a major telecom enterprise. Now, this is how, with the innovative business model, with the help of innovative or with the help of sustainable innovation, this particular company has been able to create a great impact on one of the goal of the sustainable development, that is financial inclusion. And at the same time, by undertaking this particular initiative, the organization has at the same time been able to maintain a competitive advantage vis-a-vis its competitors. Now, the second example of an organization making use of social innovation on innovation in business model or innovative business strategy is Ajinomoto. Now, this is a global food and biotech company based in Japan. It produces seasonings, sweeteners, and pharmaceuticals. Now, as part of its 2030 vision and growth strategy to help 1 billion people worldwide lead a healthier life, Ajinomoto is exploring a new personalized nutrition for health business. Now, combining its core nutrition expertise and the technology, the company aims to provide customers with digitally enabled diagnostic, analytics, and product recommendation. Now, this would guide people towards the kind of well-balanced amino acid intake that boosts cognitive and physiological functions and helps prevent aging-related diseases like dementia, a prominent societal issue in Japan. So this is how the company is coming up with innovative ways to address the social issues in the country. Now, the third example is of Indigo, a US-based agricultural technology startup that was valued at $1.4 billion in 2017. In 2019, the company launched a service called Indigo Carbon, which incentivizes farmers to remove carbon from the atmosphere and sequester it in their soil. The service provides technologies and recommendations for regenerative agricultural practices. The ultimate goal is to pay farmers for each ton of carbon captured and then sell certifications to companies looking to offset their carbon footprints. By supporting a transparent carbon credit marketplace, Indigo Carbon creates benefit for all participants: the farmers, the companies buying the offsets, the planet, and its own business. So these are some of the examples of how organizations are coming up with innovative strategies, innovative business models to address the problems of social sustainable development. Now, this particular organization here, it is creating a impact on the environment by reducing the carbon, and at the same time, through this initiative, all the stakeholders are benefited. The farmers are benefited as they are able to sell the carbon credits. The companies, and they also benefited as they are able to, fulfill their carbon emission targets, and the environment is also benefited as the carbon dioxide from the environment is being captured and is used by the farmers to make their farming more sustainable. So these are some of the business strategies, innovative business strategies used by the organizations in order to cater to sustainable development. Now, the service provides technologies and recommendations for regenerative agricultural practices. The ultimate goal is to pay farmers for each ton of carbon captured and then sell certifications to companies looking to offset their carbon footprints. By supporting a transparent carbon credit marketplace, Indigo creates benefit for all the stakeholders. Now, if you see these three cases, now we will understand that there are certain things which are common in this particular companies. Now, regardless of the industry or geography or size, they and dozens of others like them are innovating business models, building on and expanding beyond their core asset and capabilities to address significant environmental and societal challenges in their local networks. In this way, they create new sources of value and competitive advantage for their business. So we have seen that these are the three companies. One is from telecom sector, another is from the food sector. The third is a agriculture related startup. So the first is a big company, second is a mid-sized company, third is a startup. So regardless of the size, regardless of the type of industry, regardless of the geography, this particular organizations, and there are many other organizations, they are innovating their business models, coming up with innovative, sustainable innovations, coming up with innovative strategies, and building on and expanding beyond their core assets. Now, a telecom company, through its services, is going for financial inclusions. A food company is trying to help address the issues of its customer base. And the third organization, it is helping not only its customer but all the stakeholders in reducing or in addressing the environmental aspect. So all these organizations, they are building beyond their core asset and capabilities to address significant environment and societal challenges in their local context. In this way, they create new source of value and competitive advantage for the business. Now, through this social innovations or sustainable innovations or innovative business strategies, innovative business models, organizations, they are creating new source of value, and at the same time, they are also creating a competitive advantage for their business. Thus, sustainable and business and competitive advantage can go hand in hand. So this is all that we wanted to discuss here. Thank you very much for providing me an opportunity to express my views. I wish all the best for this particular conference. Thank you.
"30 minutes for question and discussion. And I let the participant to address us questions. You can raise your hand or write your question in the chat box. You are welcome. Anyone? Hello, all of participants. Okay, for the first questions, maybe it comes from me. Prof. Mohsin, Hello, Prof. Mohsin.
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. It's a give insight, knowledge. You have explained about how to maintain a sustainable business in this competitive era, and there are many factors influence. There are many factors influence a competitive advantage for all business. So my question is, in this pandemic era, like in your country, in India, what's the most significant variables to support the sustainable business in this pandemic COVID-19 era?
Now, in this COVID-19 era, the survival of the business is the most important issue. And many organizations, they are coming up with different strategies in order to survive in this pandemic. And the most important strategy which most of these businesses are adopting is restrictions. There are restrictions on, say, the transportation. So we need to have a good supply chain, because until and unless we are able to receive the raw material to distribute our products and services, it is very difficult. So supply chain management initiatives by the organization. Second is that the physical problem due to the restrictions on the movement of the people. It is very difficult for the organizations to open up their retail outlets. So most of the organizations are trying to sell their products and services online. So likewise, many organizations, they are trying to come up with different strategies. And the most important strategy is, I think, digitalization. Digitalization is the key strategy to survive in this pandemic.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Prof. Mohsin, in the chat box, there is a question from Dr. Ika. How to manage innovation business in SMEs, such as innovation in traveling, because many people it's difficult to travel. So how to innovate, to make innovation in traveling sector?
As far as the tourism and traveling sector is concerned, this is the sector which has been most affected by the pandemic because of the restrictions on the movement of people. And since there is restriction on the movement of people, the entire travel business, this is at a very standstill, because there are no customers and there are restrictions by the government. There are no flights. The flights have been banned. Now here it is very difficult for the organizations to survive in such a situation. Now, there are certain organizations who have been, coming up with some tourist organizations who have been coming up with what you can say some strategies like you don't have to visit the different places physically. So they will show you virtually the different, what you can say, sightseeing things which are there in different locations. And likewise, they are trying to come up with certain innovations. Now, when we are talking about the situations in the pandemic area, people, the question here is of survival, because since there are restrictions by the government, it is very difficult for the organizations to start their businesses. So this is the time when organizations can come up with certain innovations. And as I've told you, digitalization is one of the core strategy. Most of the organizations who have never used any sort of what you can say technology or any sort of digitalization, they are now going for this digitalization. So in the travel sector, tourism sector also, here
and they are coming up with certain innovation as to how their facilities they can be used. For example, take the example of hotels. Now, here there are certain hotels which has come up with what you can say COVID packages. That means, for example, you are suffering from say COVID, or you need quarantine. So many hotels have converted their come up with what you call as COVID packages. That you stay here, we will provide you quarantine service, we will provide you a good food, and everything will be taken care of. So the facility which was lying idle has been converted into COVID care, and COVID packages has come up that you stay, you will be safe here. The entire hotel has been sanitized. You are given the services in the hotel itself. You are given good food, nutritious food, and other things. So this is how they are coming up with certain innovations as to how this facility, which is lying idle because of the restrictions, that can be converted into some other source of generating income. So that is how organizations are coming with some sort of innovations to survive.
Okay, thank you. Is there any question from the participant? Hello? Okay, from Dr. Radian. In the chat box, how do we change the people mindset from conventional business into digital concept?
Yes. Now, there are many people who are not very much comfortable with digitalization or making use of technology for businesses. But during this pandemic, it has forced people to accept this particular concept, because if you don't accept, you will not survive. The question is of survival. So this particular pandemic pandemic has forced people. It has accelerated the pace of digitalization in business. So those businesses who were never having any sort of digital presence, now they are doing their business online. They have been forced to adapt these technologies, because if they don't adapt, they won't survive. So it is the question of survival, and therefore this pandemic has accelerated, forced people to change their mindset. The people have been forced to change their mindset, because if you don't adapt these technologies, you won't survive.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Prof. Mohsin. Any question from the participant? You can raise your hand or writing in the chat box. Hello, participant. Is there any question? Okay, there's a question. There is a question, Prof, from Dr. Indah. I'll try to read the question. When we talk.
Hello, Prof. Mohsin.
Okay, Dr. Indah.
Long time no see, Prof.
Yes, nice to see you.
Dr. Indah, you can ask directly.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Prof. Mohsin, when we talk about sustainability strategy, usually we refer to the global company, which is big and very competitive. And what's your opinion about suggested strategy for local player to cope with the global one?
Now, usually what happens is these multinational companies, large companies, since they are operating at a large scale, they are operating in different countries. And since these are large companies, they have a large impact upon the environment, because they are manufacturing on a large scale, the transportation, the use of raw materials, the discharge of effluents and other things, they are on a large scale. And therefore, they create a large impact on the environment. Therefore, they have to be very careful, or they have to be very sensitive to the impact that their businesses is creating on the environment. Because most of the time people will focus only on these large organizations. Whenever anything happens, it is the large organizations who are on at the scrutiny. People will scrutinize, people will question this large organization. So there is pressure, a lot of pressure on these large organizations to adopt sustainable business practices. Now, the second important aspect is that these large organizations, they have, uh, since they have to operate in different countries, they have to take into consideration the environmental laws of different countries, and they cannot afford to create what you can say a bad name for their brand, for their organization, for their what you can say products and services. So therefore, they are very much concerned about this. Now, as far as the local organization is concerned, or the local organizations are concerned, now the local organizations, since they are operating on a smaller scale, the impact of their operations on sustainability or on the environment is less. Therefore, they are not much concerned about sustainability. However, each and every organization, they need to identify what impact their operation is creating on the local ecosystem. It is not that only global organizations will have an impact upon the environment. The smaller organizations also, they have an impact on the ecosystem. I will give you one example about the organization in my city. There was one paper mill in a what you can say the it was a multinational company which started a paper mill in our locality. It is 50 kilometers from my place. Now it was a paper mill which was manufacturing paper. Now what happened? It used to do a lot of processing, and you know, in the paper industry, a lot of chemicals are used to convert the pulp into paper. And since my area is a agricultural area, now they used to discharge the effluents in the nearby area. Now what happened in the nearby area, the agricultural land, and that was when these effluents were discharged in the agricultural land, the fertility of this agricultural land was started decreasing. And the farmers, the local farmers in that area say that, look, this particular plant, this paper plant, this is creating problem for our agricultural land. And we don't want such an organization in our area. So the farmers started agitating because due to the discharge of the chemicals from the factory, the agricultural land was being spoiled. And the farmers protested. There were a lot of protest by the local farmers. And ultimately, that particular plant, the paper plant, has to be shut down. So there are local issues also. I'll give you another example. There was in the southern part of India, Coca-Cola, they started a bottling plant there in that area. Now what this particular plant did, they used to they had taken a lot of bore wells to extract water, groundwater. And as a result, what happened? The water level or the water level in that area drastically reduced. So the farmers said that this particular organizations, it is using a lot of groundwater, and as a result, the groundwater table, the water table in the area has drastically reduced. So therefore, that particular bottling plant of that particular company, they were forced to take measures. They said that no, we will not use a lot of groundwater. We will recharge the groundwater, and then that they came up with different strategies. They came up with different plans to recharge the groundwater. So it is not only that multinational companies, they have a impact. Even if there is a small organization, a local organization, it is creating a environmental impact. Its operation is creating an environmental impact. Now here, the organizations should ensure that whether the organization is small, whether it is big, it should ensure that it is taking measures to reduce the environmental impact of its operations. And therefore, sustainability is a issue not only for large global organizations, it is a issue for the small organizations also. So the small organizations should also be very much aware about the environmental impact of their operations and take measures to reduce or mitigate such impact.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay. Prof. Mohsin, there's a question. It's similar with the first question from Dr. Sri Handari. Prof. Mohsin, what do you think about the survival strategies that must be done during the current pandemic era?
Now, there are certain things during the pandemic era. The first important aspect is that we need to reduce the cost of our operations, because what has happened is there has been the business of most of the organization has reduced drastically. Now, here we need to ensure that we survive, and for that we need to reduce the cost. We need to come up with policies and strategies wherein we make use of the digital technologies. We have to see to it that we have certain plans, policies wherein we are able to ensure that concepts such like work from home. And another important aspect is that we need to find different ways of reaching out to the customers and ensuring that we survive in this particular pandemic. Now, another important aspect is now we need to analyze. We should have survival or risk mitigation plans or disaster recovery plans at our place. But we were not prepared for this. Businesses were not prepared for this pandemic. No one thought that such a situation would occur. Now that we know that certain such type of situations may occur, now we need to have a plan ready so that next time in future, if such a situation arises, we are already well prepared to deal with such situations. So we need to be very proactive in handling such type of situations in future.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Prof. Mohsin. Is there any question from the participant?
Yes,
okay, from Mr. Miftah.
Yes.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Mohsin.
I'd
like to ask about the role of the government. What do you think about how significant the role of government in supporting local business, especially in this?
Sorry.
Yes.
Pamifta, your voice is not clear in.
Yes. Did you hear my question?
Prof. Mohsin, do you hear the voice of from Pamifta?
I'm not able to get his question. Can you please ask him to repeat it again, or if
check?
Okay.
Okay. Is that clear? Okay.
Yes.
I would like to ask about the support of the government, especially their significance. How significant the support of the government to actually support the local business to become more sustainable or more innovative, especially in this COVID-19 era, because many businesses are facing many uncertainties and have to adapt quickly. And I think it should be the role of government supports them to be more sustainable and innovative, and of course survive in this very uncertainty situation.
Now, you have rightly said that it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that the businesses survive and sustain in such a situation. And there are a lot of measures taken by government across the countries. Now, what the government has done, that most of the governments has provided what you can say reforms, or provided what you can say incentives, provided certain benefits to the businesses. First thing is that they have reduced the taxes. And in such a situation, it is very difficult for the businesses to pay taxes. So they have reduced the taxes. Now they have also provided certain amount of what you can say loans. The government is providing, say, soft loans, that loans at a very less rate of interest. The third is they are also providing what you can say subsidies and other financial help, so that the organizations are able to survive. So the government is doing what it can do, but then it is not always a good strategy to depend upon government help.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that we are self-sustainable without any external help. So this will be temporary. The government cannot help you all the time. So maybe the government will give you tax exemption maybe for 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe for 1 year. It cannot give you tax exemption for the entire lifetime. So you need to have a strategy wherein you should ensure that you are able to survive in this particular situation. Now this situation, this pandemic is a situation wherein all the businesses have been badly hit. Now at the same time, there are certain services, certain businesses which have been benefited from this pandemic. Take the example of the pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies are earning huge profits in such a situation. Biotech companies, the companies which are manufacturing certain vaccines, companies which are manufacturing certain medicines which are used for treatment of COVID. So there is a short supply of such type of things. So both there are certain businesses which has been benefited by this COVID. There are certain businesses, most of the businesses have been negatively impacted. Now, each and every business should find their way out as to how they can survive. And I have told you now, most of the organizations, they are now adopting some sort of digitalization of their in their businesses, because this digitalization is one core strategy which has helped many organizations in this pandemic to survive. So adoption of the technology, reduction of the cost, rationalization of manpower, all these are some of the strategies which organization can use to survive during this situation.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Mohsin.
Okay, thank you, Pak Miftah. Prof. Mohsin, we still have 10 minutes, and there is a question from Dr. Sulham. His question is, as we know that there are many business strategy to apply in small business, but sometimes small business or the strategy has limitation. So how do you think about this situation?
Now, as far as small businesses are concerned, now there are certain limitations of these small businesses. There are limitations, financial limitations of the businesses. There are limitations related to other resources, manpower resources, and other aspects. Now, whether it is a small organization or whether it is a large organization, the primary purpose of the organization is to, make profits. It is to ensure that it survives. And for its survival, if it wants to be a long-term player, it needs to incorporate some sort of sustainability measures in its operations. It is for the benefit of the organization itself, because it is we understand that the organization has certain limitations. Small organizations has limitations as far as the financial aspects are concerned, the resources are concerned. But sustainability is such a thing wherein here each and every organization in its own way may try to adopt certain sustainable business practices. So some certain sustainable business practices, they don't require much of investment. For example, you say that you have a eco-friendly building. You come up with eco-friendly buildings where the consumption of power is less. Or you start a plant in a rural area, or you encourage your employees to use local transportation. So there are so many ways in which the organizations can come up with sustainable business practices which do not require much of resources. So it is creating that awareness and mindset that is more important.
Okay, thank you. There's still a question from Mrs. Fauzia. The news from the Wall Street Journal, they state that nowadays business is no longer about saving the earth. It's about saving their own company. I think this question relates to the ethics, Prof. For example, General Motors, GM, discontinue its vehicle sharing program. Starbucks no longer use recycled cups. So how do you think about these cases?
Now, see, whenever we are talking about sustainable business practices, now these sustainable business practices are not only for the sustainability of the earth or the sustainability of the planet. It is about the sustainability and survival of mankind, sustainability and survival of the organizations. If there is no planet, if there are no people, then there won't be no businesses. So sustainability is not about just saving the planet or saving the mankind, it is about saving the businesses. Because if suppose there are no raw materials available, now what will the organizations do? No raw materials are available. If you are going on exploiting the raw materials in such a manner that raw material becomes extinct, the raw material is exhausted. So all those companies which depend upon that raw material will finally become extinct. For example, take this, you are giving the example of Starbucks. Now Starbucks here, for example, if now the quality of the coffee of the Starbucks depends upon the quality of the coffee beans. Now, due to the environmental impact, due to the climate change, say that the production of the coffee decreases, or it has an impact upon the quality of the coffee beans. Now, how will Starbucks be able to procure the quality coffee beans, and how it will be able to do its business? Now, ultimately, here, sustainability is not about just saving the earth or saving the planet. It is about saving your own business. If you adopt sustainable business practices, you will survive.
Okay, thank you for the answer of Mohsin. And to all participants, do you have a question? We still have at least 4 until 5 minutes. If there is no question, I may conclude this very insightful speech from Prof. Mohsin. If we want to make our business to gain more advantage or sustainability in business, I think we have to, the first one is we have to innovate, and the next one move to the digitalization, right, Prof. Mohsin?
I think there's one question.
Okay, there's one question. One question
there
from.
There are 2 questions.
Okay. From Pak Imam Bintoro, digitalization needs more fund to finance it, and for sure costly for SMEs. How to solve it? Exactly.
Yeah. Now we know that we have to shift towards digitalization. Now, what is happening is the initial digital infrastructure, the cost of setting up a digital infrastructure is high. But over a period of time, the results that you get, that will, the returns that you will get will be far more than the investment that you have made. And secondly, what has happened is that the cost of adopting, say, digitalization, for example, the cost of the internet, the cost of different devices which are being used for digitalization has reduced drastically. So I don't think that that is a major problem. When we are digitalizing certain small operations, or for example, we want to set up a website, now you'll see the cost of setting up a website is very less. Now, the cost is for certain things are less, but of course, if you want to digitalize the entire operations, or if you want to create a digital infrastructure, that requires cost. But we can start with certain things which are not that costly. For example, setting up a website and making use of other devices for your daily operations. That over a period of time, the cost will reduce. But having a digital infrastructure will be far more than the investment that you have made.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Mohsin. I think this is the last question. Last question because we still have 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, and after that we have to pass it. From Suseno Henratmoko, I think that quality is one of the variables that must have been considered by business actors. Now, looking for other factors that need to be developed, it's still difficult to get this point, but maybe the quality of product or quality of men. You can explain more, Prof. Mohsin. Your time is 2 minutes.
Yes. Now, in all these aspects, now when we are talking about sustainable businesses, innovations, when you are talking about survival, we are talking about cost and all those things, it doesn't mean that we should compromise on the quality. It is what you can say, we should keep this in mind that in no way it will have any negative impact on quality. In fact, all these things will enhance the quality of your products, the quality of your services, the quality of your people, the quality of the culture, the quality of the environment. So here, all these business practices, innovations, and all those things which we are talking is all about enhancing the quality. And in no way any of these sustainable business practices will have a negative impact on quality. So quality will not be compromised. In fact, it is the enhancement of the quality of life, quality of product, quality of services, quality of environment, everything.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Mohsin. I think the time is up. Thank you for your valuable speech, and may Allah bless you to be insightful people, to inspiring all of people in this world. And thank you also for the all participants who joins in this session. And thank you to everyone. We have to move to the next session, and I back it to MC.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Udin. And ladies and gentlemen, stepping onto the following agenda is plenary session 3 that will be delivered by Dr. Edward Rubes from University of Thai Chamber of Commerce, and the moderator for our keynote speaker is Mr. Punang Amaripuja, SAST MIT. But before, please allow me to read the CV of Mr. Punang. Mr. Punang is the lecturer of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. He finished his first bachelor degree at Department of Management, Faculty of Economics, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Then he finished his second bachelor degree at Department of Geological Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia. For the master degree, he finished at School of Information Management and System, Faculty of Information Technology, Monash University, Melbourne, Australia. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, right now I will try to connect with Mr. Punang. Hello, Mr. Punang. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello,
Okay.
Faika.
Hello, Mr. Punang. You can hear my voice, right?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, how are you, Mr. Punang?
Good, fine. It's a beautiful day this morning.
Yeah, very nice, Mr. Punang. Okay, so for Mr. Punang, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So welcome again to the third plenary session of the International Conference on Management Sciences in 2021. We would be talking still in the broad theme of strengthening sustainable, creative, and innovative business opportunities. Now, we have with us Dr. Edward Rubes. Hello, Dr. Rubes. How are you?
Good. Hello.
Okay. Hello, nice to hear you.
Thank you. Nice to hear you too.
Thank you. So, as a starter, we will be talking about something that's very relevant with us right now and all over the world, of course. It's about the pandemic. So we did not have any idea that it would be such a long pandemic. Some people thought it would only be lasting for 6 months, maybe a year max, but it seems it has been going for 1.5 years and as if there's no end in sight. Now, of course, in the short term, it might not be that much of a problem, but in the long term, we can start seeing the economic disaster that's also happening. If you note, for instance, in Yogyakarta, this is a tourism city. And when there's a lockdown, no one comes in and people couldn't get their livelihoods. Even in the central business district of Malioboro, we can see several shops that have been closing and those shops have been sold as well. So there would be long-term consequences from this pandemic. Now, interestingly, we can see that large companies are thriving, such as Amazon. We can see that at a certain point of the pandemic, they were hiring 100,000 people. And the richest people in the world are getting larger. More rich people in the world, also in Indonesia. So there must be something interesting here. There must be several opportunities that we have not seen, that most people do not see from this pandemic. Now, let's see, we have with us Dr. Edward Rubes, which is the perfect person to be talking with us about the opportunities of this pandemic. Dr. Edward Rubes is unique in the sense that he is a scholar, but he's also a practitioner, and he has lots of entrepreneurial experiences. He has been also for a while teaching in Thailand, and he has founded 4 companies, which has been sold, and then of course there would be more and more in the future. He also runs an accelerator program with the MIT Enterprise Forum, and he's also the program director of the Innovation-Driven Entrepreneurship Center at the University of the Thai Chamber of Commerce. And he has brought with us 30 years of innovation experience to build innovative and entrepreneurship ecosystems in developing regions, especially in the Mekong area. Now, you might think that he has been working in management since the beginning, but he started out as a mechanical engineer, and then from the MIT. And then he also received a Master of Management degree from Kellogg School of Northwestern University, the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, and Chulalongkorn University. And then he has a PhD from Thammasat University, on with a dissertation, with a study on border entrepreneurs in the Greater Mekong region. Now, his area of expertise is also quite unique and also timely for us to discuss with him. It's on innovation, product, processes, service innovation, technology commercialization, entrepreneurship, and also he has, like what I mentioned, experience in becoming a startup founder, experience in technology, strategies, and education. Now, we are looking forward for the presentation from Dr. Edward Rubes. And without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Edward Rubes to give his presentation.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Punang. It's nice to meet you. And to everybody in Indonesia, good morning, and thank you for having me. When we first discussed this meeting, I was actually hoping to be there in person. When I met my colleague Retno in Chiang Mai almost 2 years ago, and like Mr. Punang said, that was back when we thought this was going to be a 6-month problem or something like that. It's now well over 1 year, and it seems like we have another year at least before we really get out of this. And I understand those of you in Yogyakarta, the challenges of a tourist city, because I spend much of my time in Thailand, which also relies heavily on tourism, and we're facing some of the same challenges. So I certainly sympathize with a lot of these challenges, and hopefully today I will bring a point of view that is optimistic. That's my hope. Okay. So if I understand the format of today, I was supposed to send a video and you were going to watch the video for a half hour, and then we were going to have a chit chat about that video afterward. Okay. But I thought to myself, why would we want to do that? Because I want to turn every problem into an opportunity. And I thought to myself, okay, I understand the reason for the video. We can't be there in person. I cannot be up on a stage. In fact, let me start sharing some slides, if that's okay, Mr. Moderator. I will see if I can make this work. I'm not very good with MS Teams. I don't know why this is. Let's see what happens when I push browse. Oops, I don't want to do that. Let's try this. Okay, this looks possible. All right. So if I'm doing this correctly, you should see a slide that says opportunities in the pandemic.
We couldn't see it yet.
Okay, it might take a little bit to get up there. Let's see what happens. Although I can see my screen, so I should be able to see it as well, right? When it comes up eventually. Let's see.
There should be a red border around the screen that you're showing.
Yeah, acting like that. This is the one good reason for having a video, right? Let's see if give me 1 second. I have a backup if necessary, but let's see what's going on here.
On the top part of your screen, of the MS Teams screen,
yeah,
on the left side of the leave button, there's an up arrow, and that's where you would be sharing.
Yeah, I know it's acting like it's sharing. It's just not showing up on the screen.
Would you like to send it to the committee?
And yeah, I was asked to do that. That would make me feel very, very shy and embarrassed, because the committee had told me that's what I should have done. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna try to rearrange things here for a second. I apologize. The committee warned me, and sometimes I don't listen. If I can fix it. I think I know. All right, we're gonna do this. And we're gonna do this. See how this works instead. I'm swapping screens here. Okay, let's try this. All right. They say it's there. Still nothing. Interesting. All right. We'll do this the lower tech way. So this isn't going to be very pretty, but I can get around it by doing it this way. Okay.
Okay. If you still can't, I think it's a good idea to share your slides to the committee.
Yeah, can you just check that? Is that being shared right now? It says it's being shared, but if not, I'll give in.
Still, nope, still not here.
Okay. All right, let me download this as a PDF and send it to you. All right, it's coming right now. I'm sending this to Ratian, who is my main contact.
Okay, so in the meantime, we'll have a short commercial break.
Good idea.
Okay.
All right, there they are.
Okay, I think we have your slides. Dr. Edward Rupes, would you like to continue?
You check and see if it's sharing right now. It says it's sharing, so I'm just curious. Are you able to see my slides right now?
Yes, I do see it. Oh, it's from you. Yeah, it works now.
Yeah. Microsoft says it's sharing. So okay, great. I don't know why it wasn't working before, but let's go with this. That way I can follow along. So first of all, let me apologize that it didn't work, and let me apologize especially to the. Let me make sure my camera's on here. I think I turned it off. Just a second. Okay. I can't have the camera on when I'm sharing, I guess. Okay. And let me apologize, especially to the organizers, because they warned me. They said, please have a video. But in fact, this is a little bit part of my message. All right. Part of my message is this. Every problem that happens is a challenge. And when a challenge occurs, oftentimes we see all the negative parts of the challenge, and we have to react to those negative parts. All right. But we've now been in this pandemic for a year, and it's time to start looking at the opportunities that come out of it. And so today, I want to turn this into an opportunity. And that's why I wanted to do it live, right? And let me also explain, this is part of the mindset that I think is important for all of us. And I was listening at the end of Professor Mohsin talking about the fact that businesses need to find their own way out. Governments aren't going to be able to do everything. And he's right. And unfortunately, he's most right for those smaller businesses, right? We've talked about how the big businesses are getting richer, and those tend to be very well connected to the government. It's the smaller, medium-sized businesses and the entrepreneurs that need to find their own way. And one of the messages for today is we have to be able to experiment. So I apologize to the organizers from the point of view that it has not been good for your conference. But for all of us, I think there's still to be a message that experimentation is important, even if there's a risk that something doesn't work right away. And so what I want to do today is I want to make this as interactive as possible right from the start. And here's why. Okay, I want to be able to cover these topics. We'll talk about the pandemic, but what we really want to talk about is what is an opportunity. And the message I want to have is we've got to explore and experiment. And really, we've got to explore and experiment with problems and people if we're going to find opportunities in this pandemic or in the next crisis. All right. And if we're able to do this, we're going to come up with a mindset which is more like seeing things differently, and we're able to think bigger. And the reason for that is because we can act small with very, very small experiments. All right. So that's what I want to talk about today. But I also want to give you some biases. I'm an entrepreneur, and my viewpoint is of an entrepreneur always. The moderator introduced me as being both a scholar and an entrepreneur. I hope that's kind of true. But most scholars that I know, most of my academic colleagues don't look at me as being very academic. And in fact, many of my entrepreneurial colleagues look at me as being too academic. So I'm stuck somewhere in the middle. All right. But my message for today is that everyone can be more entrepreneurial. It's not about starting a business. For me, it's more about mindset. So I want today to be an opportunity. And I want you guys, all of us, to realize, yeah, we had a stumbling block here at the beginning. And I want us to embrace those stumbling blocks, because that's what allows us, if we're allowed to do that, if we're able to do that, that's what allows us to move forward and succeed at new things. If we want to be perfect, the only way to be perfect is to keep doing old things, but that's no way to seize an opportunity. Okay, if we were in a room together today, I am not like this guy. Okay, I'll tell you right now, I am not like this guy in the photo. Okay, he's more famous than I am, for one thing. All right, but he is standing at a podium. He's got a microphone to his mouth, and he will stand there and talk for some number of hours. But if we were in the room today, I would not be doing that. even if we were in the room together today. Why would I not be doing that? Because this misses the opportunity. If I'm only going to stand on a stage and talk through a microphone, you should watch me in video every time. You don't need to see someone live, because the only interaction you're getting is one-way communication. It might as well be a video. So even if we were in a room today, I would leave this podium and come out and try to get people engaged in the conversation, even in a big auditorium. All right? And so why am I telling you all this at the beginning? I'm telling you this because in this case, remote is actually a bigger opportunity. Let's see how. Let's activate ourselves right now. If you want to join, I want you to get interactive. And I'm going to use WhatsApp here. You can see I have a few problems with MS Teams. So I'm going to use WhatsApp. So here's what I want to do. Either take a screenshot of this, or let me, I have another window here that I can get some stuff. Let me give you the link. I think I have a link here. Let me copy this link and I'll put this in the chat. All right. So you can use either one of these, I think, to join a WhatsApp group that I set up. And when you've done that, just send a message, send a selfie in. I'm going to send a selfie of myself. Send a selfie of yourself into this new group. And immediately we're going to see that being remote is actually an advantage than if I was sitting in the room with you. All right. So send a selfie of yourself as soon as you have a chance to get online there. I'm going to put my selfie in the same group. All right. So it's called ICOMS is the name of the group. If you join, I see some people are joining. There we go. I see some selfies going in. Here's a selfie of me live right now. All right. Excellent. Great. Good to see people going. And what you're going to see is we're going to try to do, keep going. I've got a few people in here already. Keep sending some selfies. You're going to see what my goal is we're going to make this interactive right from the start. And it's always an experiment. Everything I do is an experiment. And that's one of the lessons I want to share with you today is everything can be an experiment. Okay, so keep sending your selfies to me and we'll get them up here in a come on, there's got to be more than 3 people out there. I need some selfies to get us started. And the reason for this has a very serious underside, and that is we want to create interactions. All right, even if we're in a remote world, we want to create interactions. So come on, guys, send me some selfies. Also, feel free to tell me what your role is. You don't have to put your name if you don't want to, but what's your role? If you think you're a professor, put down professor. If you're a teacher, if you're a researcher, just like this, I'm going to type it in here. So I'm a teacher. All right. Okay, so I can get the teacher in there. Master student, excellent. I love it. I love it. Okay. Everyone is shy with their photos, but at least we've got some people sending up the work they do. Anyone else out there? No more professors? Excellent. Another selfie coming through. Thank you. From the committee. Excellent. Okay. And the reason I want to get started on this is because it's important that we activate ourselves if we're going to look for opportunity. That's going to be my first lesson that we talk about today. All of us need to be participative in our opportunities, all right? I think sometimes when we're based in a university, I don't know how many people are based in a university, but sometimes when we're based in a university, we feel like our role is to get other other people active. And I want us to get ourselves active. Excellent. Here's another one coming in. I appreciate that. Ah, excellent. A whole bunch of people working together and smiling. Thank you very much. Great. Okay, so with this in mind, what I want us to do is use this. Okay, I know there's only 4 or 5 of us being active, but I'm hoping we get more people active. Here's my question. Let me go up and go to my first question in my slides here. Okay, we've got a few people on here. Please keep joining if you want to be part of the conversation. As I told you, I think it's important to make even a meeting an interactive experience if we're going to get the most out of it. Okay, so now that we're active, now that we're activated, let's write down. I want us to get a view of what we think right now, before I talk any further. Write down some opportunities from the pandemic. Write them down. Just send them to me in WhatsApp, one opportunity per message. Just send them one by one. Write down some opportunities in the pandemic, okay? I'm going to get back to my notes so we can kind of watch them going up as people send stuff. Okay, home delivery, great. What else? Give me some other opportunities from the pandemic that we've seen. By the way, if you're just joining, feel free to also send up your selfie. Getting closer to family, agree. Sometimes too close, sometimes there's no exit, but getting closer to family is great. Any more? Oh, lots of great ones. Okay, here they come. They're coming up right now. Learning new technologies. Me too. I've used this last year to really learn some new technology. Easier to do business. That's an interesting one. I'm wondering who said that. Some people disagree, but I'm glad to hear that you feel that way. More creative room for me as a lecturer and more insight to research. Excellent. Excellent. Ah, great. Ah, there's Retno. Good to see you. We'll send you over right now. Excellent, looking good. Okay, so what we can see here, some of us, at least probably more of us that are answering here, are really using this opportunity to do some new things. But let me ask you a question, okay? And again, everyone, please feel free to keep putting your pictures up and putting your thoughts up, because I'm going to ask you another question in a second. Let's look at what these opportunities are that we have here. We got work from home, more creative room for me as a lecturer, easier to do business, learning a new technology, getting closer to my family, home delivery. Okay, there's some things we've seen. But I have a question for you. For me, these all look similar to each other. This is a question I have for you, and it's a question that's going to help you understand what is opportunity. But I want us to explore this question. These things here all seem similar to me. Does anybody see some similarities to these things? Whether it's home delivery, getting closer to my family, learning new technology, easier to do business, room for me as a lecturer, work from home, or any more things like this. What makes these similar? What makes these similar? I want us to think about this. What makes these similar? Any thoughts? Send something in the WhatsApp thing. Again, I want this to be interactive, and I want us to see the opportunity of interactivity. By the way, feel free to also turn on your mic. You can say something as well. I don't need to be the only one using the mic. What makes these things similar? That's my question. By the way, I have a lot of experience teaching students who are very quiet, so if necessary, I'll make this tougher on us. What makes these things similar to each other? Okay, here's some more coming your way. Looking good. I like these. Having more time to do things, overcoming the challenge is the similarity. Overcoming the challenge is the similarity. This is interesting. Overcoming the challenge is the similarity. I want to know more about this one. Overcoming the challenge. Opportunities is the similarity. Spending time. Excellent. So here's one thing I see here. Overcoming the challenge is the similarity. This is a very interesting comment. All right. Overcoming the challenge is the similarity. And this is from Ratian. Oh, he's my boss today, right? Okay. Ratian, since you're the one who put this up here, you said overcoming the challenge is the similarity. What is the challenge? What is the challenge? Do they all overcome the same challenge? What is the challenge?
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very fine. Okay. You asking about the similarity here. So, according to my opinion, so at the moment, all of us are facing the same challenge. How to facing the coronavirus like this, the pandemic, how to get out from the pandemic.
Yep.
So based on this challenge, and then we are using another different kind of perspective, different angle. Other people, the other person, they're doing business more easier. The other people doing, they can work from home. So from different angle, so based on perspective A, this pandemic can be getting closer with their family. For the other person, this pandemic, they can learn the technology, so they can optimize the challenge by using their own strength. That's the meaning by my statement. To overcome, everyone want to overcome this pandemic as an opportunity.
Okay, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. So Ratian says, or Ratian believes, and I think most of us would believe this, that the main challenge we're overcoming the challenge of the pandemic. Okay? Now here's my challenge to you. Because by the way, I agree with Ratian, and I agree with his suggestion here that these are all similar in that they are people doing things to overcome the pandemic. That is the important message here. That is the important message here. Each of these is a solution. Each of these is a solution. Each of these is something we do. Okay? Now, I want to take our understanding of opportunity to a different level. So I'm going to go back to my slides. All right? So, and sometimes I do this. I'm not going to do this today, but I put these slides in here because for those of us who are instructors, I wanted you to see a little bit what, how I use this both in university courses and also when I'm teaching in an incubator. I'm trying to get people to understand what opportunity is. And at the beginning, I start with an example that everybody knows. So I assume, I don't know for sure, but I assume we all know Alphamart, right? Okay, I assume we all know Alphamart, but I'm going to skip through this. I just want you to see how I developed this thing about opportunity. And remember, where we are so far is everyone has written in those post notes what we do, what our solution is. Okay, so, but for me, and this is the main message about opportunity, for me, an opportunity is not only solution. Okay, and for me, an opportunity is not just home delivery. It's not just getting closer to my family. It's not just learning a new technology. It's not learning how to be more creative with my teaching. This is only one part of the opportunity. And this is the second most important message of today, is when we recognize that an opportunity is brought together by four things, it allows us to open up what we can explore. Okay, so one of the reasons I asked that question to start with is, yes, most of us think of an opportunity as a solution. Home delivery, getting closer to our family, being able to be more creative, having time to learn a new technology. And by the way, I'm not saying any of those aren't important. I'm just saying they're not complete in understanding the opportunity. So I want us to do one more exercise. Same question as before, but this time tell me the problem and the person affected by the problem in this pandemic situation. What is the problem and the person that is affected? And be specific, okay? So I'm going to make this slide. So instead of, oops, let me skip through this. So instead of, let me just go here. Instead of talking about what we did, I want us to talk about a group of people and the problem that they're getting in the pandemic, okay? So let's write that again. Everyone write that again. And I'll give you a simple example. And I'll type it in here first so we can see it. And then you can think about it with the solutions that you had before, all right? So one of the problems is, I am hungry, but I am afraid to go out into a crowded space. All right, I'm going to send that, and we'll put it up there. Okay, I'm hungry, but I'm afraid of going out into a crowded space. All right, so let me put that up so we can see it. So in this case, there's a person, it's me in this case, and I have a problem that I'm hungry. So I'm not talking about home delivery now. I'm turning the opportunity around and writing it from the point of view of a person and a problem. And it doesn't have to be I, but I'm okay if you start with I. We know our problems first. So I'd like us each, let's write another, do the same thing that we did before, but instead of writing it from the point of view of what we're doing to solve it, let's write it from the point of view of what our problem is, who it is, and what our problem is. And the who can be us, the who could be our students, the who could be our parents, the who could be our kids, the who could be our friends, the who could be small businesses in our community who take care of tourists. Like that was one of them, right? We can put that one in right there. Businesses or tourists have no customers. All right. So please, I'd like to see us write 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 things, not from a solution point of view, but write it now from a people with a problem point of view. Let's change this around, okay? So please put some notes in there, send them to the WhatsApp group, and they will automatically show up here. Okay, somebody type some things in here, please. Let's get a few more, but this time people and problems rather than solutions. I see some people typing. Great, please type. Oh, interesting. So I want to scale my business, but I don't want to change because I'm already in the comfort zone. Very, very interesting challenge. And of course, that's not a challenge that even exists in the pandemic. That exists all the time, doesn't it? Any more? I want you to come too. Here's another one on the way to you guys. I want to go to Thailand for vacation, but too many restrictions. Listen, I'm going to type this one in. I want to go to Indonesia to present to ICOMS. Okay, same problem. problem. I know what you're going through. Here's some more coming up. Great. I don't want to spend too much time choosing products in a shop. I agree. I understand. I want to make my own food business opportunities to serve others. Okay. So what's happening here is we're changing hopefully we're changing our thinking. Hopefully we're changing our thinking to, here's another good one. This is a very common problem. Let's see what this one is. I want to go for recreation, but too many restrictions. I agree. I get bored of staying at home during the holiday, but I'm worried to go out. Okay, so this is great. You know, we're getting these. Now what we've done, let me go back to my slides, because we've taken a very important step in our understanding of opportunity. We are now, many times when people talk about opportunities, and if you read it in a business newspaper, or if you read it in a magazine, or you see it on the news, we hear about the solution. But I believe if we're really, really going to create new opportunities, we need to be working here at the people and problem side. We need to get people and problems working together properly. Okay, so what I want to urge us to do something here. I want to urge us to stop thinking, or not to open our thinking more broadly, that an opportunity is not just a solution, that before we have the solution, we need to have the people and the problem. Okay, now I have a question here. Ratian, you are online somewhere. Can I ask you a question? Oh, actually, I should ask Mr. Punang, my moderator, I guess. Mr. Moderator, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so the question is this. I've tried to make this interactive, and we've got some good interactivity going, but now I'm over time from the original video schedule. Should I open it up to questions or continue in this kind of discussion? What is better, do you think?
Okay, I think you can continue for 5 minutes before moving on to the next slide.
Great. Okay, then what I'll do is I'll show you more of my slides. And by the way, I will send, well, the slides I think have been sent to you anyway when I had the technical challenge. But here's an example that I worked on a few years ago, and this is from Indonesia. This was one of our incubators that we ran, a social impact incubator that we run with UC Berkeley, and this is one of the teams that joined. And it's a great, great project from near Surabaya. Okay. And I don't know if you guys know this guy, but this is Dr. Gamal, okay? And he ran a company, he started a project called Garbage Clinical Insurance. Anybody know this? I don't know how well known he is in Indonesia. He's well known to me. Anybody know of this guy?
Yeah.
So he had a great, great insight, and it wasn't based on a solution. It was based on understanding people and problems. So he was a doctor, right? He is a doctor. But when he was a medical student, he was working in a village clinic like he was supposed to do, and he was supposed to be providing medical services to people who came to the clinic, a very poor clinic, very poor village. And what he realized, let's go back a slide. What he realized, so he was supposed to be providing, you know, doctor's services in the clinic, but what he found out was people would only come to the clinic when they had money. People would only come to the clinic when they had money. Now that's a huge problem, because when should you be going to the clinic? When you're sick, right? And so what would happen is people would come to the clinic only, they'd been sick or they weren't feeling well a few days ago, but they didn't have money then. And so they'd wait a few days, they'd get some money, and then they'd come. And he realized that was a huge problem. People could not come to the clinic when they were sick. They felt like they could only come to the clinic when they had money. So he came up with a solution. He said, well, listen, if you got, and these were very, very low income people, a lot of them were garbage scavengers already. You know, that was their source of money. Okay. So again, what I want to emphasize here, when we're visualizing an opportunity, very specific group of people, very specific problem. So these garbage scavengers working around the village had no money. They were living day by day. And then they had no fixed income, right? They couldn't pay regular medical bills. So what he did was he set up a system where they would bring recycled materials to his clinic every month. And he had a system. He said, every month you need to bring this many bottles or this many kilograms of cardboard or whatever. And then his clinic started the service of recycling the materials, and he would keep them in an account ledger. So now the village, these guys, it was basically insurance. They're paying insurance, but they're paying insurance with recyclable materials instead of with cash. Brilliant idea, okay? And it came from the fact that he was focused not on the solution of providing medical services. He was focused on the fact that these garbage scavengers had very little money, actual cash, and they had no fixed income, so they couldn't pay regular medical bills. And he turned that around and said, okay, just bring me recycled materials, and you could bring it any time during the month, and he would keep them. And at the clinic, he built it up so there was a receiving area, there was a scale to weigh the cardboard and everything else, and they kept it. And it's a brilliant project, okay? And what was great about that was the fact that this opportunity, okay, this was way before the pandemic, this has been several years now, but it was driven by observing pains and problems that people have. And this is why what I want to emphasize when we go back to some of the things we've written here, okay? It's true, we can say that these are all by the pandemic, but they're actually not, all right? Getting closer to my family, okay, that was a positive result of the pandemic, all right? Positive result of the pandemic. Why? Because normally I have no time. Normally I have no time I have to work all the time, I have to do this, I have to do that, or my family has to do this and that, and now we have more opportunity to be together. The message here is, yeah, okay, pandemic is a general theme, but the specific problem is we don't have time to be together as a family, all right? So this is what, as we look at opportunities moving forward, I want us to make sure that we look at opportunities having all four of these things. And I'll just go through here. You know, we're understanding the people, we're understanding their problem, and then we're thinking about a solution and what resources we need. All right? And the last message I'll leave, and then I'll turn it back to the moderator, and we can talk about any level of detail, is we tend to think small at the beginning, right? We just see our own little things. And what we really need to do is find ways to think bigger. And we can think bigger in a lot of ways. One way is we can get out and look at the internet. Internet has all kinds of interesting, different people doing different things. And most importantly, we can really spend our time looking at people and problems, get good at observing, interviewing, and participating in their needs. And if you're in a role as a professor or an instructor, especially in an entrepreneurship program or an innovation program, I urge you to get your students out doing this kind of stuff. And if you think if you can get them thinking like Dr. Gamal, what is the specific problem that this specific group of people have, you can turn many, many problems into opportunities. And I'll just leave you with one last thought, and then we'll get into a discussion. You know, the moderator, when he talked about this, was the big companies are getting bigger and richer. Yeah, that's true, unfortunately. I don't like it either. But one way to push back against that is to look at what the big companies still are not doing well. The way a big company gets big is by offering a very standardized service. So if you can find a very specific problem that a specific group of people have, you still have an opportunity to move in there and create a life for yourself, an opportunity for yourself. Okay, so that is really the message that I have about thinking big and acting small, is you can make these things work if you are keeping your eyes on people that are not able to satisfy everything in their life. I'll use that as a stopping point. There's many more slides in the presentation to get people thinking. And you can look at these at any time, including right now, and ask any questions. And if you have any questions afterward, feel free to send me. My email is at the front and last slide. So feel free to send me an email. Okay, with that in mind, I'll turn it back over to the moderator and we can ask some questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rubis. Now, I think you're absolutely correct in terms of small businesses, because we see during recessions, during economic disasters in Indonesia, the most resilient group would be small businesses, even though the large banks would be bankrupt, but the small businesses still strive. So that's one way to look at a bright spot there. Now, I would like to invite questions from the forum. Can you please raise your hand if you have any questions? Okay, maybe we can start with Pak Radian.
Okay, thank you, Pak Punang. Hi, Edward.
Hello.
It was really interesting presentation. But I have a question here. You're talking about the problem. So as a business, as an entrepreneur, how do we overcome the problem? Is it better to use our strength or to overcome our weaknesses?
Okay, so you remember, I told you my bias is coming from the view of an entrepreneur. That's my bias. I love entrepreneurs. I love the entrepreneurial process. So I'm going to answer from the point of view of an entrepreneur. In my opinion, big companies succeed by building on their strengths, but entrepreneurs cannot, because entrepreneurs aren't very strong. Entrepreneurs succeed by being willing to and able to learn better than anybody. The superpower of an entrepreneur is being able to learn. And so what I always say for entrepreneurs: explore, experiment, execute. And explore and experiment are basically continuous processes of learning. So the entrepreneur's superpower is learning. The company's superpower is expertise. That's the trade-off I see in the world. So always learn, always explore, and find people with pains, and then experiment, try things and see what works.
Okay, does that answer your question, Pak Radian?
I hope it was close.
Actually, like mentioned by Mr. Punang before, because at the moment, a small business is the one that still survive, but probably they do not know. They do not know about their strength. They don't know about the weaknesses. So how do we advise them? Should they use their strength or using the overcome the weakness?
So for me, I don't know, every small business is different, but if I look at the small businesses around my community, where the ones that I see succeeding is they are keeping their eyes open all the time to their customers. One nice thing that a good small business has is their customers, right? A good small business really knows who their customers are. They see them every day. It's not the same as a big company, which you interact through social media or something like that. A small business, a shop, knows their customers and is able to listen to their customers and adjust regularly to things that are going on. So that's what I really mean by, for entrepreneurs, I really like us to have a people and pain focus, or people and problem focus, more than a solution focus. Rather than us being this is what we do. Let us be listening all the time to those customers of ours and just be trying anything to help them get through what they're doing. And if we can do that, these SMEs can do quite well. Except, I admit, in a tourist area is tough. I admit that one's a tough one. So, but in regular communities where there's a lot of people living and working, those SMEs do well, in my opinion, because they're always tied into people. They're not tied into their solution. They're tied into what their customers need. To me, that's their strength. But it's being people problem oriented.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else would like to invite other questions, other comments, feedback from the audience? Or maybe, if you don't mind, I have a question of my own. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so in your experience, what should academic institutions do to help out with the community, as well to help out with the students that are trying to build their businesses? So just to put it into context, in the near future, even now, actually, students can go for a whole semester to open their own business, or even they could also have a project in helping out with small businesses to grow those small businesses for a whole semester, and in some cases it could be for a whole year, and they could be getting credit for that, academic credits. So what do you think the university could do to establish an infrastructure for that?
So I'll tell you what we're doing, because I'm sure we have a similar challenge to what you do, where we're hoping to make people more entrepreneurial, and we're hoping that they can launch businesses and be successful. But where we have seen, let's call it an opportunity, where we have seen an opportunity for a long time is to try to encourage students to think bigger. All right. So a lot of students, a lot of student businesses or ideas that students have are very narrow. They already exist. You know, they're very basic businesses that exist, and they tend to be very, very narrow. So we've turned the problem around, and we said, in this case, it's an undergraduate program. We've said, we have these students for 4 years. Okay, we have these students for 4 years. In 4 years, what can we do to get them to be thinking bigger, so that when they want to go out and do something, they're thinking beyond the normal, traditional, businesses that a student opens. All right, so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say our goal is to try to make them think bigger. So what we've done is and these are just ideas. I'll just share these as ideas. We have set up every year as a theme, and we change the theme every year. So this year our theme is sustainable fashion. Okay, and the reason for having a theme is all the courses that they take during that year. I mean, they're the usual courses that you would take, marketing and finance and entrepreneurship and creative thinking and fairly normal courses, but they're aligned to a bigger theme. So that even though they're studying in these courses, it's building on top of each other. So our goal is always to try to get students to be thinking bigger about what is possible for themselves. And then the second part that goes with it, we see this all the time: think big, act small. Think big, act small. So we're trying to get them to think bigger in what they think is possible, but in acting small is to get them into action very, very quickly, doing things. And we love, it is a little bit difficult with the pandemic. Not a little, it's difficult with the pandemic, but we have always tried to get them out, walking around the community, looking at what's going on. We do a lot of observation and exploration exercises and lots of interviewing projects. Okay. And this is what I put in the slide there, that top part of the better we can get at thinking about people and problems through observation, interviewing, and participation, being involved in these, the the more confidence we have to try something bigger. And so our goal in our curriculum is we don't have them start anything on their own until the 4th year. And our goal is to try to do as many things as possible to stretch them in year 1, 2, and 3 with our projects, and then they launch their own thing in the 4th year. So that's how we try to approach it.
Okay. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Now, any other questions? I would like to invite other questions as well. In the meantime, you were talking about large companies not being flexible because everything is standardized, but we do see a trend in some large companies. This is very specific. For instance, like in SpaceX, they were a small company. Now they are a large one, but they still, it seems their objective is to fail first and fail as many times as needed until they get a perfect formula for their rockets. And it's something that small companies would be doing, but it seems even though they're a large company, they are still able to instill that vibrant nature.
Yeah, but remember, they're driven by one single individual who's still very much an entrepreneur. And I think we see this in this part of the world as well. There are a lot of businesses that get started by a founder, and that founder has all kinds of ideas and grows. And whether that founder grows it to be the size of a restaurant or grows it to be the size of a big company, you know, there's a lot of entrepreneurial energy in that founder. But then when it moves on to the next group, maybe it's the kids, or maybe it's a professional management group, now professional managers are not quite as flexible. So it'll probably be a while before we see what happens to SpaceX. But when SpaceX becomes a professionally managed company, I think it'll be very, very different than when it's a company what it is today. And I think we may see the same thing with Amazon, right? Amazon was launched and grown by a guy, and he's no longer in the company. So we'll see what happens. And then, you know, there's all kinds of questions about what will happen to Amazon. And Apple the same way. There are a lot of questions about how Apple will continue to do things, and Google as they kind of move into this new phase of you know, professionally managed. And they have a lot of money, so they can keep investing in new companies. But the question will be how many new ideas they come up on their own. So I don't know, but that's the distinction. I mean, the guy who runs SpaceX seems to be a guy with unlimited ideas. So.
Yeah, it's about institutionalizing entrepreneurship, maybe.
Yeah, and that's not as easy. That's one of the main activities that we do through my center and also through my company. Once things become institutionalized, the whole definition of institutionalized includes some standardization, and that standardization doesn't always like the non-standard things very well, even when it says it does. You know, when it says, okay, come up with 10 weird ideas, but only 10. I don't want 11 and I don't want 9 because it's supposed to be 10, right? I mean, it begins to, you know, kind of cut away from some of the creative rough edges. So.
Right. Okay, we have a question from Bu Retno Widowati. Bu Retno, I'd like to invite your question.
Thank you.
I think it's still muted.
How much now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Hi, Dr.
Hello.
Thank you for coming in this room. After talking about the country, that we have a very good opportunity, and even there are increased sales in small present in this time as I look around me. Also get opportunity using technology. All is work during run business like PLENARY, but then we stop maybe next year. But then with this opportunity, then we can learn something, can do like trading or online business, then we can set a dream. Even some that they are not doing the same, then let's how about the experience in Thailand maybe?
So I'm sorry, Mr. Punang, I didn't hear everything. Are you able to repeat for me? At my end, there may be an internet problem. I'm not sure.
Okay. So I think basically, Dr. Ratna wants you to share about the experiences of Thailand for companies to develop online activities, online commerce.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's probably a lot of similarities as what we see everywhere else. So, you know, there's a lot of people trying to do different things online. And they started, so even before the pandemic, of course, like the telecom companies were trying to, the telecom companies in Thailand used to run these incubators because they were always hoping that there would be startups that would lead to apps and content that the telecom companies could sell. So there was that first generation of things. And then of course there was all the e-commerce stuff, again, way before the pandemic, you know, the various e-commerce things, you know, some of the more famous companies in Thailand are e-commerce companies and media companies that are selling books and stuff, kind of like mini Amazons. Okay. In fact, the thing that I was sharing with you guys is a startup. This thing right here, I'll just share this for a second and show you. So if I share this screen, we should be able to see each other again. All right. So I think I'll go here. So these notes that you were looking at earlier are basically a startup company. This thing here that you were looking at, that we're creating. So this is actually my startup, and in fact, it's being developed in Indonesia. So our developer is in Indonesia, and we've never met him in person. We've been working together for over a year, and we talk 3 or 4 times a week. And he was on this call for a little while earlier today to see how the platform was going. But we've never met in person because it's been during the pandemic this whole time. So we're also learning about this whole process of online, and we're hoping to use this in an education space. And Dr. Retnall, we will certainly share the platform with you when it becomes usable, and you can tell us if it's helpful for you. So there's that kind of range of companies in Thailand that are going from e-commerce and media companies, and then there's a few of us working on some things to kind of make tools better for collaboration, especially if we've been in an education environment. So that's some of the things we've seen, and that platform that I was using earlier is a platform that we're developing with the help of a brilliant Indonesian programmer who is who's our development team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, please? Or you can also write down in the chat room in MS Teams if you don't feel like asking directly. And at the start, you said that not many people are hoping that this government can help us much in terms of small businesses, in terms of instilling vibrancy in the economy. Is that correct? Or what should the government do more to help the small businesses?
So I was just listening to a comment of the previous speaker, Professor Mohsin, and he said the government can only do so much, right? The government can't do everything. And I agree with that statement. And I also feel that in general, it seems like governments end up supporting big companies more than small companies. Now, I know that seems untrue. I mean, it seems like we always see these programs to help SMEs, but I think those tend to be more public relations, you know, because it's a little bit of money, but it's spread out among so many different SMEs. I don't know how much impact it really has. Whereas the government can give one large company access to be the importer of vaccines, for example, and that has a huge impact. So you know, I know governments around the world, this is not true of only Thailand or just Indonesia, the US is the same way, you know, talk about all the things that they're doing for its people and for SMEs, but that stuff gets so spread out that I wonder how much impact it can have for any one of us. And so that's why I was agreeing with Professor Mohsin when he said we have to also find our own way. So let's take whatever support we can get, but if we're kind of keeping an eye on the people we're working for, our customers, trying to understand their problems and their needs, we might be able to continually come up with new services and survive and be sustainable. So that's really what I meant by that comment. I was kind of building on what the previous keynote speaker was saying.
Okay, thank you. So we still have some extra time for questions and answers, actually. So if there are more questions, we'd like also to invite those questions. So in the meantime, I'll recap what was just presented by Dr. Albert Rubes, some highlights there. So first, for businesses, they should always first observe, interview, and then participate in order to get those business opportunities. Now, one main opportunities for small businesses is to customize, because large companies, of course, would tend to standardize their services, their products, while smaller companies has the agility and the opportunity to bring more specific products and services for their customers. Another thing that Edward emphasized, especially for students, is to think big, but start small. And this might not be the case for all universities, but he advises for students to start the businesses in the fourth year, or the final years at least, but at front, they are motivated to think big and then trying to find out what are the steps that are needed to achieve those goals. And in terms of government, the last comment, it would be also that the community has to try to work on their own, at least, because we couldn't just rely on government, but everyone has to do their part to overcome the economic difficulties that this pandemic is giving all of us. Okay. Are there any other questions, follow-up questions?
I can just add to that, when I talk about this entrepreneurial mindset, really all of us can be more entrepreneurial. Some of us said in our ideas, that we're learning a new technology, or we're learning how to be more creative as a teacher. So all of us in whatever role can be more entrepreneurial. So I just wanted to add that along with your wrap up, and you covered much of these. So I'll add just one more. Always, no matter who we are, whether we're a student entrepreneur, whether we're an SME, let's be looking for people with problems who really need us the most, who we can really take care of the best, and we can really create a long-term opportunity for them. So I just wanted to add that to your excellent wrap up.
Okay, thank you. So I hope this is not the end of our discussions, but later on we would have the chance to meet again with Dr. Edward and discuss further things, because this is we have what we call in our university the graduate profile, and one of the graduate profiles would be being an entrepreneur. So this is something very important for us, and it's one part of our core business actually. So it has been wonderful to be able to talk with Dr. Edward Rubes, and hopefully there would be more partnerships in the future between the university and Dr. Rubes.
I look forward to that, and I still can't wait to have a chance to visit you in Indonesia.
Okay, please do. Thank you. So,
thank you. Thank you, Ratuwan. Thank you, Retnal, for putting this together. And Mr. Punang, thank you for being a moderator.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. To all the participants as well. Thank you very much. And Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have to move to
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The plenary session 3 has been ended, and the next agenda is plenary session 4 that will be delivered by Mrs. Florina Silagi, MSc PhD from Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona, Spain. And before I introduce our moderator, for participants, you don't have to move to another links. Please stay in this room. Once again, please stay in this room. You don't have to move to another links. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the moderator for our keynote speaker today is Mr. Taufik Akbar, SAMBA. Please allow me to read the CV of Mr. Taufik. Mr. Taufik is the lecturer of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. He finished his first bachelor degree at Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia, in the field of finance. Then he continued his master degree at Master Degree in Financial Management, Universitas Gadjah Mada, and now he is pursuing his doctoral degree at Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona, Spain. And right now I will try to connect with Mr. Taufik. Hello, Mr. Taufik. Hello, Mr. Taufik.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, can you hear my voice?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, ¿cómo estás, Mr. Taufik?
Yeah, I'm great.
Okay, Mr. Taufik, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm great. Thank you, Faika.
Okay, nice, Mr. Taufik. So for Mr. Taufik, the time is yours.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Faiza. Maybe I will take over the plenary session 4 today. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. Before we start our discussion of today, I will greet to all the participants of the 7 ICOMS 2021. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And I hope all of you have a good condition for today. And as of our schedules, today we will conduct the plenary session 4 and will be delivered by the Professor Florina. Before Professor Florina deliver the presentation, I will read briefly about her CV, and after that we continue to the presentation from her. Okay, the Professor Florina right now have the current position as the lecturers in Business Department, Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona. She got the education from in 2005 and 2018 in Bachelor of Science from Academic of Economic of Study in Bucharest, Romania, and her Master of Science from Economic and Finance in CMFI in Madrid, Spain, and her PhD in Graduate School of Management in University of Rennes in France with the highest honor of summa cum laude. Her research interest is on corporate finance and financial distress, bankruptcy, restructuring, real option, and the crowdfunding. Professor Florina also experience in some publications. Many of the papers have published in the Journal of Economic on Dynamic and Control, Journal of Banking and Finance, and right now she also become the member of some professional memberships such as the Financial Management Association, Spanish Association of Finance, and France the Finance Association. So maybe because we have the short time, we can start the presentation, the Professor Florina. Okay, maybe we can learn together. After this one, we will conduct a Q&A session. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Florina Silagi. I am a lecturer in finance at the Business Department of University Autónoma of Barcelona. It is an honor and a pleasure for me to give one of the keynote speeches for the 7th International Conference on Management Sciences. I would first of all like to thank the organizers and especially Professor Radian Dananjoyo for inviting me. I hope that you're all doing well during these difficult circumstances of the pandemic. Given the time difference between Spain and Indonesia, I have followed the suggestion of the organizers and I have decided to prepare this video for you, but I will join you shortly for the discussion session. Given this year's conference theme, Strengthening Sustainable, Creative and Innovative Business Venture, I have decided to present a recent paper that I have with my former PhD student on crowdfunding. I think that this recent paper that we have suits very well the topic of the conference. We are quite happy since the paper has been very recently accepted for publication at the journal Research Policy, which is quite a good journal. We just got the news a few days ago. Okay, so the paper is entitled Resolving Information Asymmetries in Financing New Product Development, the Case of Reward-Based Crowdfunding. And as I've just told you, it is co-authored with my former PhD student, Ahmed Sewaid, that is now assistant professor in finance at INSPER, a business school in Brazil, and with the co-director of the thesis, my colleague, Professor Miguel Ángel García Sestona, that is here with me at University Autónoma of Barcelona. Let me start by giving you some motivation and anecdotal evidence for this work. We all know that the engine of every economy is the ability of entrepreneurs to start new ventures. However, many times entrepreneurs face many difficulties in accessing sufficient capital to be able to finance their business. This problem was then further aggravated by the recent financial crisis, and it was in this context of a need for alternative financing that crowdfunding appeared. As you probably all know and you're all familiar with it, crowdfunding is a funding mechanism in which a large number of investors contribute small amounts of funds in order to finance a project via online platforms. So crowdfunding leverages the internet and social networks. To show you the potential of crowdfunding as a source of financing, let me give you some anecdotal evidence. And for that, I will briefly present you this project, the Pebble smartwatch that became quite famous. The founder of Pebble, Eric Mijigowski, envisioned a smartwatch that would be connected to a smartphone and that would display messages on the go. He took this idea through the Y Combinator, and like this, he was able to raise $375,000 through angel investors. Nevertheless, he was then unable to raise further funds to be able to undertake production. So he decided to launch a crowdfunding campaign on the largest crowdfunding platform, that is Kickstarter. And he set as a minimum goal $100,000 to be raised in the form of pre-orders from the backers. The surprise came when 1 month later, he had successfully raised more than $10 million from more than 68,000 backers. So he basically raised more than 100 times the minimum goal that he had attained. Okay, so this shows you the potential that crowdfunding has. Initially, crowdfunding appeared as a last financing resort, as it brought to life projects that would not have seen the light otherwise. According to a recent report by Goldman Sachs, the immediate market opportunity for crowdfunding was estimated to be at around $1.2 trillion. Therefore, we need to understand the underlying mechanisms of crowdfunding, and indeed, researchers have turned their attention to this area, as can be shown in the growing emerging literature on this topic. Now, there are 4 main types of crowdfunding. We have reward-based crowdfunding, in which basically individuals fund a project or a business with the expectation of receiving in return a non-financial reward, that is a good or a service at a later stage in exchange for their contribution. Okay, and as examples, the most famous platforms of reward-based crowdfunding are Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Then we also have peer-to-peer lending, in which the crowd lends money either to a company or an individual in exchange of receiving later on the principal plus some interests. And this works very much like borrowing from a bank, except that now we are borrowing from a large set of investors. As examples, you have the platform Lending Club or Prosper and so on. Then we also have equity crowdfunding, in which consists basically of the sale of a stake of a business to a number of investors in return for their investment. And this is very similar to how we exchange common stock on the stock market. Relatedly, there exists also profit sharing or revenue sharing, in which instead of selling a stake of the business, we simply share part of the revenues or of the profits with the backers, with investors for a certain number of years. And finally, we have donation-based crowdfunding, in which individuals contribute small amount of funds for a project that has a charitable scope, and here they do it in exchange for nothing. They don't expect a financial reward nor any material return. And as an example, you have here the Kiva platform. In this paper, we are going to focus on reward-based crowdfunding. So basically, we analyze financing new product development in reward-based crowdfunding. As I have previously mentioned, in this case, the backers fund the entrepreneur in exchange of a good or a service. So this basically means that they are advance purchasing that good. Therefore, in reward-based crowdfunding, the entrepreneurs solicit funds from the public in the form of pre-orders. So reward-based crowdfunding constitutes a very interesting context to investigate the financing of new product development, since it allows the entrepreneur to simultaneously get an idea about the attractiveness of his project, so the potential demand that he's going to obtain from the consumers, and at the same time, he's able to finance his production through pre-orders. Okay. Now, depending on the crowdfunding platform that we have, the entrepreneur might or might not need to publicize a minimum capital that is required to launch the venture. For example, in Kickstarter, there is an all or nothing policy, according to which the entrepreneur only receives the funds pledged by the backers if the amount of funds exceeds the minimum capital required. Otherwise, the money is just returned to the crowdfund, to the backers, and the entrepreneur does not receive anything. On the contrary, on another platform like Indiegogo, the entrepreneurs can choose whether they want an all or nothing policy, or if they prefer a policy of take it all, which implies that no matter how much money was pledged by the backers, the entrepreneur just gets that amount of money. Okay. Now, as typical in such exchange environments where one party possesses more information than the other, so in our case, the entrepreneurs know much more about their project and the product that they offer compared to the potential investors, we have issues of information asymmetries. So this means that the potential investors, they have incomplete and imperfect information regarding the quality of the venture or the credibility of the entrepreneur. This can lead to potential market failures, as we know from the famous market lemons problem of Akerlof. He was giving an example of the market for old cars, in which basically when you want to buy the car, you don't know how good that car is and how well the previous owner treated the car. And this sometimes can deter a transaction from taking place. Now, a potential solution for this problem is the signaling theory that was proposed by Spence in 1973. And this basically implies that the entrepreneur should send signals to the potential investors to disclose information about the prospects of the startup. And in this way, the good entrepreneurs can signal the quality of their project and distinguish themselves from entrepreneurs that have less good projects. Okay. In the previous literature on crowdfunding, the previous papers have focused on either entrepreneur-based or campaign-based signals. For example, the use of media, so images, videos, crowdfunding experience, so whether the entrepreneur is a novice entrepreneur or whether he has previous experience in crowdfunding platforms, positive psychological capital language, and so on. As you have here, the example of the papers of Anglin et al. 2018, Butich et al. 2017, and Courtney et al. 2017. However, a very important signal, that is the price strategy of the entrepreneur, has been overlooked, and in particular, the expected future retail price at which the project is going to be sold on the retail market once the crowdfunding campaign has finished. So to date, we know very little about the effectiveness of pricing signals in financing new product development through pre-selling. So what do we do in this paper? In a nutshell, we look at the effectiveness of different pricing signals in reward-based crowdfunding. And namely, we look at free signals, price commitment, publicized discount, and reward classes. Price commitment consists basically of the entrepreneur announcing or publicizing the future retail price. So the entrepreneur announces during the crowdfunding campaign what is the price at which the product will be sold once the campaign is finished, so after the retail market opens. Then we also look at the publicized discount. So whether the product is offered during the crowdfunding campaign at a price that is lower than the price that will be that will apply during the retail period. And finally, we look at the number of reward classes. So whether the product is offered at different prices during the crowdfunding campaign. And what we want to know basically is whether publicizing the future retail price or offering the product at a discount during the crowdfunding campaign will enhance the campaign performance. So will the entrepreneur be more likely to succeed and get his campaign financed during the crowdfunding period if he announces to the public what the future price is, or if he offers a discount during the crowdfunding campaign? Moreover, we also look at signal interactions. So we want to see whether signals that originate from the same source, so that are generated by the entrepreneur and that might partially overlap in the information that they convey, whether they partially offset each other or whether they enhance each other, since we know that signals rarely act in isolation. Okay, and we test this hypothesis using a manually collected information on a sample of 1,835 Kickstarter projects offering consumer products. Okay, and let me just give you a preview of our key results. We find that committing to future prices, increasing the discount during the campaign period compared to the future retail price, and increasing the number of rewards, all these free signals enhance campaign performance. So the entrepreneur is more likely to achieve the minimum goal of the campaign and get his project financed if he publicizes the future prices, if he offers a discount during the campaign, and if he uses a larger number of rewards. Regarding signal interaction, we find that a less informative signal is weakened by the presence of more informative signals, as I will explain into detail later on. So what is our contribution to the literature? We basically contribute to three strands of the literature. First of all, regarding the growing crowdfunding literature, the closest papers that are related to ours are the theoretical papers by Chakraborty and Swin in 2021, and Sayedi and Baghe 2017. These are theoretical papers that use as a signal the pre-order price, so the price that applies during the campaign period, so during the crowdfunding period. Unlike them, we empirically show the effectiveness of pricing signals, and we do not use the pre-order price as a signal. On the contrary, we focus on the future retail price. Moreover, we also shed some light on previous conflicting evidence regarding the number of reward classes and their effectiveness for the campaign performance. And in particular, we show that indeed reward classes are effective. Increasing the number of rewards will increase the likelihood of success of the entrepreneur. Secondly, we contribute to the literature on advanced selling. And similar to these advanced selling models, we show that in crowdfunding, crowdfunders offer price discounts to signal their quality. This is in contrast to previous crowdfunding literature that has focused on buyers' altruistic motivations, or like Belflam et al. 2014 called them, community benefits. We, on the contrary, we focus on backers' extrinsic motivations, and in particular, we focus on this financial reward that takes the form of a discount. Okay, in Belflam et al., for example, they were focusing on something that they call overpay behavior and a price premium. So they were basically saying that the backers have this altruistic motivation. They want to help the community in which they live, and that's why they are willing to pay more than a fair price for the product. So they pay a price premium. On the contrary, we focus on consumer products in which we see that the financial reward, the potential discount that the backers might obtain during the crowdfunding period, plays an important role in the success of the campaign. And finally, we also contribute to the strength of the literature focusing on signaling product quality. And here, basically, we empirically show that price signaling is effective in a reward-based crowdfunding setting. Okay, so now I will go into detail through what we do in the paper. I will show you our hypothesis development, the data methodology, the empirical results, and finally, some policy implications from our work, and I will conclude. Now, let me show you first in this figure 1 an illustration of the signaling process. Okay, so we have that information regarding the subject. In our case, the subject would be the project that the entrepreneur is proposing. So this information about the project can be communicated to the recipients, and the recipients in our case are the backers, the potential investors, through signals that can either be self-generated or externally generated. So signals that can originate from different sources. We have self-generated signals when the signals are generated by the entrepreneur himself or herself, while externally generated signals could be signals such as, for example, the comments of other backers that are posted on the campaign website. Now, this signaling does not take place in a vacuum, and the effectiveness of the signaling process is contingent on the environment in which it takes place. Now, we focus in this paper on signals that originate from the entrepreneur. So we focus on self-originated signals, self-generated signals. We have here an example of two signals that can increase the performance of the campaign, so increase the likelihood of success of the campaign. However, as I've mentioned, these signals, they rarely act in isolation. Rather, they interact with each other. So we might have that there is a positive interaction between the signals, so that they might enhance each other, or on the contrary, that the interaction is negative, so that the signals partially offset each other. We basically hypothesize that when the signals originate from the same source, that is the entrepreneur, and they provide different information, then they will enhance each other. But that when they originate from the same source and overlap in the information that they provide, so that they provide similar information, then they will partially offset each other. So we will observe a negative interaction. Let me give you a bit more details about our hypothesis development. So we have 4 main hypotheses. First, we know that in reward-based crowdfunding, the pricing strategy of the entrepreneur can be seen as a 2-period game. Okay, so we first have the crowdfunding period, so the advanced selling period during the campaign, where the quality of the product, of the good, is unobservable. The good does not even exist by then. At most, we can see a prototype, right? The campaign is meant to finance the project. So as to finance the project, so to finance the production of this good. And then second, we have the retail period that takes place post-campaign, where the pre-orders are delivered and thus the quality can be observed. Now, by using price commitment, the entrepreneur can offer the products for pre-ordering at a low price during the campaign, and at the same time, simultaneously commit to a higher future retail price, since the consumers can infer from a high future price a high quality of the product. Now, the entrepreneurs that lack confidence about delivering a high quality product are not going to find it in their interest to use price commitment, so to announce the future retail price, since if they announce a high retail price but then fail to deliver a high quality product, then this will hurt the future retail sales. Okay, so this basically means that price commitment is costly, and only crowdfunders that are confident in delivering a high quality product will announce the future retail price. So this leads us to our first hypothesis, hypothesis 1A, that basically says that price commitment by the entrepreneur will be positively associated with campaign performance. So if the entrepreneur publicizes the future retail price, then the success of the campaign will be higher. And we also see, if we look at Kickstarter, at the top 100 most funded projects, we'll see that more than half of them, so more than 50% of them, do publicize the future retail price. Now, looking at price commitment is important, of course. However, this does not provide us information on whether this signaling entails a high price announcement or a low price announcement. Okay, announcing a higher retail price is costlier because it involves foregoing a larger portion of the revenues during the campaign in order to be able to financially reward the backers. Moreover, if you announce a higher future retail price, then the entrepreneur also risks losing future sales if the product does not live up to the backer's expectations. So crowdfunders, so entrepreneurs that are more confident about their abilities to deliver a high quality product will find it beneficial to announce a higher future retail price, which implies a higher discount level. So this is a signal that provides implicit information about the quality of the product. If the entrepreneurs are not so confident about delivering a high quality product, then they will offer a lower discount during the crowdfunding period. And this leads us to our second hypothesis, hypothesis 1B, that says that rewarding potential backers with a higher discount relative to the announced retail price will be positively associated with campaign performance. However, we know that using price commitment is costly. It is costly because it involves very meticulous planning and the entrepreneur has to have a very good idea of the future production costs. So you need to estimate very well the production costs. So for this reason, some entrepreneurs might not commit. A less costly alternative to signal quality about the product and to signal the future retail price might be simply using the design of the rewards in the crowdfunding website. Basically, typically in a crowdfunding website, you'll see that the rewards are designed in an increasing price pattern with the lowest price appearing first. So basically, initially, we have that the product is offered at the super early bird price, then at an early bird price, a special campaign price. And these prices are usually in limited quantity. So they are available in limited quantity. And therefore, from this increasing price pattern, the backers could infer that the future retail price will be at least as large as the highest price that appears in the rewards level. So this is an alternative way to be able to signal the future retail price. In the literature, we currently have mixed evidence about the effectiveness of reward classes. There is evidence from Buttigieg et al. That say that reward classes have no impact on the campaign performance, while evidence from Courtney et al. 2017 say that reward classes have a positive impact on campaign success. So to be able to address the issues of how signals interact, we first validate that the number of reward classes is indeed positively associated with campaign performance in this second hypothesis, I mean, third hypothesis, but hypothesis 2. And finally, like I've told you before, we look at signal interaction, and in particular, since here we have signals that originate from the same source, that is the entrepreneur, and they partially overlap in the information that they provide, so they all provide information on the future retail price, we hypothesize that the presence of the more informative signals that are price commitment and price discount will weaken the positive effect of the number of reward classes. So the informational effect of reward classes will become redundant if the entrepreneur explicitly announces what is the future retail price. Okay, so let me now move to the data that we use. So we have data extracted from the largest crowdfunding platform, that is Kickstarter, and this data is from April 2009 till November 2016. Our initial data set includes more than 194,000 projects, out of which around 41% are successful. These projects raised a total of $1.92 billion. From these projects, we will focus on those projects that finance new product development, so in which the backers pre-order the product. So these are around 21 subcategories like accessories, product design, video games, wearables, and so on. This is what we call our population, and it includes a total of 30,751 projects, out of which again around 41% are successful. Although this represents less than 1/6 of the total projects, they account for more than half of the funds raised. So they account for more than $1 billion of funds raised from the initial data set. Okay. Now, the problem is that collecting information about the pricing signals that interest us is very time consuming. It's very complicated. This information is not readily available. We need to look at the reward section of each project, the text description, even watch the videos, because providing this kind of information is not standardized. Each project has a different way of announcing it, and they might announce it in the images, in the videos, in the text description. So it takes quite a long time. That's why it's not feasible to collect this information for the total population that we have of more than 30,000 projects. So what we did was to randomly select a sample of 2,000 projects from this population, for which we tried to collect manually this information on the pricing signals. So we have a random sample of 2,000 projects selected from the population, but then we had to drop 13 campaigns because the web page was no longer available. And also 152 campaigns were dropped because we had free coders that were collecting this information on price commitment, price discount, and reward classes, and they did not unanimously agree on these campaigns. So we ended up with a sample of 1,835 campaigns. Our dependent variables, so our proxies to measure campaign performance, are first a dummy variable that is success, which is equal to 1 when the campaign has reached its funding goal and 0 otherwise, and then another variable that is the amount pledged by the backers. Remember, like I told you before, in Kickstarter, they use a null or nothing policy, which means that the entrepreneur only receives the money if the amount pledged is larger than the minimum funding goal. Otherwise, the money is returned to the investors. Then regarding our independent variables, so our pricing signals, like I told you, we need to manually collect them from the website of the campaigns. So this is how a typical website for a campaign looks like. You see, usually they have a video. So we had to watch the videos to see if they give any information on the future retail price. Then below you will have the project description, the text description of the project. And on the right-hand side, we have the different rewards. So you see, they present the rewards in an increasing price pattern. First, the lowest rewards that are usually in limited quantity. So pledge $25, then early bird number 2, pledge $129 or more, and so on. So these are our independent variables. First, price commitment is a dummy variable equal to 1 if the entrepreneur publicizes either the future retail price or the discount. So I gave you here an example. You see that in the rewards section, they say pledge $179 or more, and then they say basically that the regular retail price will be $199. So from this, you can infer that indeed the product is offered at a discount during the crowdfunding campaign, at a discount of $20. So in this case, since the future retail price is publicized, we have that the entrepreneur employs price commitment, so price commitment is equal to 1. Then we have the publicized discount, that is an average discount that we compute relative to the future retail price. And I gave you an example here as well. You see that they say pledge $185 or more, and below they put you will be saving $115 off of the retail price of $299. Okay. And finally, the number of reward classes. We basically again check the reward section to compute the number of different reward classes that the entrepreneur is offering. We also control for a set of variables that were previously used in the literature and that are shown to affect the performance of a campaign, such as the goal of the project, whether the entrepreneur has a previous crowdfunding experience, so a previous success or failure, if there is a patent, the count of the words, images, and videos, the duration of the project, the category, and the year. Now, in order to check if the random sample that we have is representative of the population, we have performed 2 checks. The first one is to present the means of the variables, of the control variables for the population in the random sample, and to take a test for differences in means. And as we can see, for almost all variables, there is no significant difference in means between the population and the random sample except for the project goal and the video count. Second, let me move a bit the camera. Second, we ran regressions of the success and the amount pledged on the control variables for the population and for the random sample, and we get very similar results. So the same size, similar significance, and very similar magnitudes for the coefficients. And these results are in line with the results of previous literature for these control variables. Therefore, we conclude that our sample, our random sample, is representative of the population, so there are no concerns regarding this. Okay, then we present here some descriptive statistics, the correlations between the variables and the variance in inflation factors. As we can see, on average, we have that 41% of the projects are successful, and in total, we have that 15% of them commit. So in 15% of the project, the entrepreneur either publicizes the future retail price explicitly or the discount. You see that this is quite low compared to what I told you that happens for the top 100 most funded projects on Kickstarter, in which more than half of them were committing. Okay, then we look at correlations and we see that the maximum and median variance inflation factors are below the thresholds established in the literature, so there are no multicollinearity issues. Nevertheless, these variables, price commitment and publicized discount, since they are very interconnected and have the highest variance inflation factors, for precaution, we are going to use them in separate estimation models. And these are the main results that we obtain. We have here our model A, that is the variable, the dummy variable success, that we regress on our independent variables, the pricing signals, and then all the control variables used in the previous literature. So here, since the dependent variable is a dummy variable, we are going to use a logistic regression model. We see in model 1, we introduce the control variables plus the independent variable price commitment, and this has a significant and positive effect. In fact, to give you the economic magnitude of the results, we find that 63.5% of the projects that commit are successful, while only 36.77% of the projects that do not commit succeed. Okay, so this difference is significant. Thus, these results provide a clear support for our hypothesis 1A. So price commitment has a positive impact on campaign performance. Second, we include the publicized discount, and we see that again we have a positive and significant coefficient. And in economic terms, we have that one standard deviation increase in the discount that is offered to the backers is associated with an increase in the probability of success of more than 30%. Okay, and this again is significant and provides support for our hypothesis 1B. Then in models 3 and 4, we add together with price commitment and the discount the number of reward classes, and these again have a positive and significant impact. We find that one standard deviation increase in the rewards, the probability of success shifts from 28% to 49%. So this means an increase by more than 75%. Finally, in models 5 and 6, we introduce the interaction terms. Okay, so we interact the informative signals, price commitment and discount, with the less informative signal that is the rewards, and we find a negative and significant coefficient. Nevertheless, we know from the previous literature that in this kind of nonlinear models, just looking at the interaction coefficients is not enough, and this is why we plot here in this figure 3 the conditional marginal effects of rewards on the probability of success. So we have in blue for projects that price commit, and in red for projects that do not commit to future prices. So we indeed see that for these projects that do not commit to future prices, the impact of rewards on the probability of success is much larger. Okay, so this means that the two signals overlap and they partially offset each other. We do the same type of analysis for our second dependent variable, amounts pledged, this time with a robust ordinary least squares regression model, and we find very similar results that confirm the previous results that we obtained for the dummy variable success. We also perform a series of robustness checks. First of all, to rule out selection bias, we run a two-stage Heckman test, and indeed we find that our results are robust. We also perform propensity score matching to match projects that commit with projects that do not commit, and course and exact matching, and we find that our results are still robust. Then to rule out the fact that previous crowdfunding experience might be driving our results, we also look at a subsample of novice entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs that have no previous crowdfunding experience, and we find similar results. We also look at alternative proxies for campaign performance. So for example, the funding percentage, the number of backers, the successfully raised amount, and our results are still robust. We also have used social capital instead of human capital. And regarding the outliers, we have trimmed instead of winsorizing. And regarding the methodology, we have used a probit instead of a logit, and still we find robust results. Now, in the interest of time, let me skip the presenting more details about the robustness checks and go directly to the implications that we can derive from our work. We have two sets of implications, first for policymakers and second for entrepreneurs. For policymakers, we basically suggest that to spur regional entrepreneurial activity, the policymakers should offer financial literacy programs that are tailored to the crowdfunding set. Okay, so the idea is to help the entrepreneurs through these programs so that they are able to set their pricing and reward construction strategies, and in this way, they will be better able to signal information about their product quality, and this will enhance their probability of success, which in turn will spur regional entrepreneurial activity. Also, secondly, we know that currently price commitment is only binding through reputation costs. So basically, the entrepreneur commits to a future retail price, but he can deviate from it. The only punishment if he deviates from it, if he announces a high future retail price, but then deviates from it and reduces the future retail price, is the fact that if he has to return to the crowdfunding platform, then the backers might not trust him again and might not support his second project. However, what the policymakers could do is to make commitment legally binding through regulation. This would make the signal much more costly and credible, and this could further enhance the success of the campaign. Finally, we think that we suggest that the entrepreneurs should increase awareness of the benefits of this crowdfunding platform for new experience goods, where the sellers also revert to advanced selling. So we think that these new experience goods are very similar to the products that are these consumer products offered on crowdfunding, since their quality is not observable. They are goods that haven't been experienced before, so new experience goods. And the crowdfunding platforms might be beneficial for them as well. So policymakers should increase the awareness of these platforms among these kind of entrepreneurs. Finally, for entrepreneurs, we have two main implications. The first implication is that entrepreneurs should commit to future prices to incentivize potential backers. So publicizing your future retail price might help you achieve success. And second, that they should carefully construct their rewards in order to appeal to a wider set of potential backers. Okay, so let me conclude. In this paper, we explore the determinants of success in financing new product development through crowdfunding. And unlike previous literature that has focused on the backers' intrinsic and altruistic motives, we look at their extrinsic motives, the financial reward that takes the form of a price discount. We have shown that pricing signals are effective and that they significantly increase the probability of success. Our work could be extended along several directions. For example, we could look at the determinants of price commitment in crowdfunding. So we know that committing increases the probability of success. So the question is, what makes an entrepreneur commit? So why should I commit to prices? Second, we took here a static view, but one could also analyze the dynamics of price signalings if we take a serial crowdfunding. So entrepreneurs that finance more than one project in a crowdfunding platform, do they use price commitment only in the first project or in the second one as well, and so on. And finally, we have only analyzed the impact of price commitment on the campaign performance, but we know that the second period of the retail period that is post-campaign, so one should also analyze what is the effect of price commitment on post-campaign performance. Okay, so let me stop here. Thank you very much for your attention. And I will join you briefly for the discussion session to answer any questions that you might have and to hear your comments. Thank you.
Very good morning, Dr. Florina Silagi.
Good morning.
I have 2 points. All right. Thank you very much for joining our conference. Actually, I have 2 points in my question. I want to know about the essential factor for business to get the crowdfunding from the bakers or from the investor, because I think the business owner should promote or actually communicate their business very effectively to the investor, so they can actually they can trust that business, so they can give them funding, right? So what is the essential factors to get for business to get crowdfunding? And then regarding to the price signaling, how to maximize the price signaling campaign to be able to attract the investor effectively in your point of view? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. This is the question from this is my colleague, Miftah. Yeah, the other 2 questions about, I will repeat the question about the factor to get successful crowdfunding, right? The first question.
Yes, exactly.
And the second one is about the price signaling. Okay, Professor, maybe you can directly answer the question.
Thank you very much. for your questions. Yes, indeed. If you look at the previous crowdfunding literature, there have been several factors that affect the crowdfunding performance. So the success and the ability of the entrepreneurs to be able to gather funds from the crowd. And in particular, many of them are characteristics of the campaign, of the crowdfunding campaign. So, for example, the project goal has been shown to be negatively associated with the success of the campaign. So normally the more money you want to gather, the lower your success. And then what matters a lot is the media characteristics. So whether you have images, the text description, also the type of language that you use. So if you use positive language that shows that you're confident, that you trust that you're going to deliver a good project, this also impacts the success of the campaign, whether there is a patent or not. And of course, also whether the entrepreneur has previous crowdfunding experience. So if you have previous success on crowdfunding, this of course also helps a lot. And regarding the signaling, like I mentioned in the policy implications, we think that right now there is quite a low proportion of projects that or entrepreneurs that use price commitments, so that signal through their prices the quality of the product that they will deliver. And to maximize this pricing signaling, we suggest that policymakers should offer programs, financial literacy programs for entrepreneurs, precisely to help them to have a better idea of their future production costs, so to be able to better estimate their future production costs so that they get an idea of the future retail price that they should set, and like this be able to signalize, to signal their quality, their product quality, and attract further potential investors. Okay, so we think that this is costly and difficult for them to do, and if they get financial literacy programs that make them be better able to estimate their future production costs, then they would be able to use price signaling better. And as you see, in the top 100 most funded campaigns, more than half of the entrepreneurs use price signaling, which is quite higher compared to the average that we find of only 15% across all the campaigns.
No. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for answering the
Thank
question.
you. Thank you, Pak Miftah, for the question. Okay. Okay. Anyone that maybe have another question here? While we're waiting, maybe I will ask some questions regarding the presentation because, yeah, like your presentation that maybe get the sample from the Kickstarter that we know that you said before. The Kickstarter is one of the crowdfunding platform that maybe they're very unique, because when we use the Kickstarter and you set the goal and you don't reach the goal and you get nothing. And so here the issues of the committing of the future price, the issues of the how the entrepreneurs ensure the investor trust, build the trust in for the investor to invest in their project. It's very critical. The question is about issues about the future price that you delivered before, Professor. How we can determine about the future price, because maybe every project maybe have the different characteristics, right? So like we making analogy, like in the stock price, when we calculated the intrinsic value of the stock price, we there are so many factors that behind them. Maybe the factor about the asymmetric information also can be considered about this one, because we don't know about the continuity of the project that may be offered by the investor, right? If the entrepreneur, sorry. So how we can determine the future price? So we can the investor can build the trust, and the backers can invest to their project, Professor.
Thank you, Taufik. Yes, indeed. When setting the future retail price, the entrepreneurs face this trade-off. Like on the one hand, they want to signal a high future quality of their product. No, they want to show to the backers that the product that they will deliver is of high quality. So they can achieve this by setting a high future retail price. If they do this, this will help them gather funds in the crowdfunding period. Okay, but this is not their only concern. They are also concerned about the retail period. So once the crowdfunding period ends, they will basically commercialize the product on the retail market. Now, if they set a too high retail price and the product is not as good as they promised, then this might affect their future retail sales, right? So then the backers, once they observe the quality after the pre-orders have been delivered, they might realize that the product is not worth that high future retail price. So in that case, the entrepreneur will suffer. He will either have to reduce the price, which will affect his reputation if he deviates from the commitment, or he will just have low retail sales. So the idea is that when setting this future retail price, the entrepreneur really has to think about this trade-off, about getting success and financing getting the financing needed to finance his production on the campaign period, during the campaign period, in the crowdfunding campaign, but then at the same time not set a too high future retail price so that the sales are not damaged in case the product is not of good quality as promised. So that's why we suggest these financial literacy programs, so that they are better able to estimate their production costs, so that they get a better idea of what the ideal future retail price that they set should be, so that at the same time they can achieve success in the crowdfunding platform, but also not affect their retail sales period. So I suggested, for example, in the future research directions, that we investigate the effect of price commitments, so of publicizing the future retail price on the crowdfunding success, but future work should also look at how this future retail price affects the retail sales. So what happens post-campaign, because we stopped here at the campaign, but one should also look at what happens after the campaign.
Okay, yeah, that's clear. Thank you, professors. Anyone here maybe that still want to ask some questions from the Professor Florina? Okay, Pak Radian, maybe please, you can ask the question.
Echo. Oh, echo. Okay, Mas Taufik, thank you for the opportunity. Hi, Florina, how are you?
Hi, very nice to meet you, Radian. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
It's all right.
In person.
I will say thank you for you to accept my invitation as well. So, Florina, as far as I know that we can find a lot of crowdfunding in the market. So, as the crowdfunding company, how do we differentiate with the competitor? And then from the investor perspective, how to make sure that our investment is we investing in the safe company? How to make sure that our investment is going to be safe? So that is basically there is two questions here. So how to differentiate as a crowdfunding company with the competitor, and then from the customer perspectives, how to make sure that our investments going to the safe company? Yeah, that's it, Pak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pak Radian. So we have the question, how to differentiate between another crowdfunding company, and the second one, in customer point of view, how to make sure that the money is being saved, right? When they invest to the project in the crowdfunding. Okay, Professor, maybe you can answer the question.
Thank you very much, Radian, for the question. So let me start with the second one. So from the perspective of the investor, right, of the perspective of the backer, how to make sure that our investment is safe. Well, this is precisely one of the problems that I was pointing out in the presentation. So right now, the commitment of the entrepreneur is only binding through reputation costs. There is no binding through regulation. So if the entrepreneur then does not deliver the product or changes the future retail price, there is no punishment. There is no legal punishment for the entrepreneur. So we advocate in the paper that further regulation is needed to be able to protect the backer. What we say is that basically if the entrepreneur then needs to return to the platform to launch a second or a third project and so on, he needs to keep his promises. He needs to deliver the good, he needs to maintain the future retail price and not to change it, and so on. But if he doesn't want to return to the platform, then of course he will not be affected by this reputation cost. So yes, to ensure that the investment of the backers is safe, we think that further regulation should be set. And then regarding your first question of how to differentiate from competitors, well, basically what they can do is to develop a prototype of their product, since the quality is unobservable. So to be able to show that their product is of good quality, they could develop a prototype. Then there are also many companies that help them create the campaign. We have seen that many attributes of the campaign are key in the success of the campaign. So there are special companies that help them develop the video, develop the rewards section, the text description with the positive language that is used, and so on. So they can get this kind of advice or counseling from this kind of companies to be able to differentiate from competitors and be more likely to achieve success.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Professor Florina. Thank you, Pak Radian, for your question. And okay, Edward, here maybe one more question.
Question, Pak Taufik.
Okay.
Okay.
You still have any question?
Yes, one question for Mr. Florin.
Okay, one more. Sure. Okay, please, Pak Firman.
Okay, Mr. Florina, this is a simple question for me. What do you think about crowdfunding in Indonesia? Because I have tried to research about crowdfunding, but almost my respondent didn't know about crowdfunding, even though they are director of business.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Firman, for your question. Okay. Professor Florina, you can answer the question.
So I'm not sure I understood well the question, but I think you're asking about crowdfunding in Indonesia, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. So, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not very familiar with crowdfunding in Indonesia. I mean, most of the platforms that we work for research purposes are from the US because the data is publicly available. Here in Spain, we did have contact with several platforms. We tried to obtain the data from several platforms that were here in Spain to analyze the success of the campaigns here in the Spanish context. And unfortunately, we were not able, I mean, for confidentiality reasons and so on, they didn't want to give us the data to be able to do research on them. But about Indonesia, maybe I expected you to tell me more about it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Professor Florina. Yeah. Okay. Maybe this is in the end of the session. Once again, thank you, Professor Florina, for delivering your presentation for today's session. Because I think maybe they still have any question, but we're constrained with the time. And once again, thank you very much for your attending in our conference. And
no, thank you for the invitation. It has been a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I hope you get more insight here about the crowdfunding. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I will close this session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And I will give back to the master of the ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
1, day 2, and we will have 2 parallel sessions for today. But before we start the parallel session, we will have 35 minutes break, and we will meet again at 12:25. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Please stay in the stage. Then we want to have photos.
Ah, yes.
Okay.
All the participants, please
yeah.
stay.
Okay, all of the participants, please stay in this room. Also for Dr. Florina and Mr. Taufik, we will have a photo session before we close this session. Okay, I will count. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the next photo, hold on. I will count again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much for the participants.